10?
10.
Maybe all people already here, all speakers.
Okay,
I
good.
mean,
Very good.
so we may start at 10.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
Так, спікери у нас, здається, всі є.
Окей, доброго дня всім. Ми раді всіх вас.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're pleased to welcome you here. And first of all, let us start with the technical notification. So please, Anastasia, can you give the instructions and recommendations of how we should behave? So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. Let me remind you about the simultaneous interpretation function. Please make sure that you'll notice at the lower panel, you can see the globe-like panel that reads interpretation. Please make sure that you're going to choose the Ukrainian channel if you would like to listen or speak in Ukrainian language.
Dear English-speaking participants, I would like to remind you about interpretation. Please choose the icon of globe interpretation English at the bottom panel. Thank you very much for your attention.
Доброго дня ще раз, доброго ранку.
So good morning once again. My name is Tamara Malkova and I'm going to be the moderator of our today's meeting. And I would like to start with saying that the discussion platform is that actually the platform that is always used by the Green Dossier, our organization, to discuss the most challenging issues. And European Green Deal and its implementation in Ukraine, especially in very important sphere for us as agriculturists, is definitely a challenging and important question. It requires the broad discussion and searching for solutions with many people from different spheres. And I do believe that the most importance of it is that for the European Union, shifting to the new Green Deal is this continuation of the previous policies. Then for Ukrainians, it is the real challenge that cannot be ignored. European Green Deal, the strategy from farm to fork, the new action plan on organic production. How can we use these new opportunities that are in front of us and how can we avoid the dangers and challenges? We are conducting these meetings in the framework of the International Congress together with the Organic Ukraine NGO because we know that we have the highly developed organic production and it can be the main driver for introduction and implementation of the new policies that have been approved by the European Union in Ukraine as well. We're going to be discussing the importance of the development of the organic production in the framework of the new policies of European Union in Ukraine and how it will influence Ukrainian village and the environment around the village, how it will influence the behavior and habits of the residents. And we're also working a lot about working with the projects from farm to fork. This project has been implemented by the European Union with the support of the Renaissance Foundation in the framework of the EU for Society project. And I would like to pass the floor to Gregory Tsouris, the representative of European Union to Ukraine. Please. Gregory, please, the floor is yours.
I was trying to unmute myself. Good morning to everyone. So I will unfortunately speak in English, so quite slowly, I think, for the translation to take place. First of all, I wanted to say it is a pleasure to take part in this meeting because discussing, first of all, this topic is of great importance, and I think it's a big opportunity also for the people that are already engaged in this activity of organic farming and sustainable agriculture, but also for the ones that are maybe reflecting on doing so. I think you rightly said in your introduction that organic farming. I mean, there is a lot of attention that is attached to organic farming and sustainable agriculture by the European Union. Very recently, I mean, there was a new action plan within the EU that was published on how to link sustainable food systems and the Green Deal, and specifically focusing on the organic sector. So the ambition is to move from maybe 8%, a bit more than 8% of the agricultural lands that are today in organic farming to 25% by 2030. And what does this mean? That the market and the demands are now there. I mean, there's been the organic policy is not one that is new, but the take-up from the consumer side has increased. That has more than doubled in the last 7 years. Even, and this was a bit an uneven. This is an even. But the potential is definitely there, and there is an appetite for more healthy food, and definitely also for when linked to products that have specific characteristics and that come from specific areas of the EU, including Ukraine, not EU only as the European Union, but from the European continent. So it's always a pleasure to talk to people that are engaged in organic farming, because experience shows that it's usually their most innovative farmers or entrepreneurs, and that are also interested in environmental and economical and engaging in these activities for both reasons, economical and environmental. And I think it's a very important mix of and mindset that can deliver change and help transform the economy of a country, but also the attitude of citizens. So I think it's very important that on one side, farmers and processing companies, agri-food companies are engaging in organic farming. There's a lot of work to be done also to stimulate demand and to ensure consumer trusts. I think this is understood. This is the experience from the EU side, and I'm sure it's valid also for Ukraine. I'm a newcomer here. I mean, I only came in Ukraine last August. I was before in Armenia, and the difference is flagrant in when going into a market or a supermarket. You can find organic products, organic meat products as well, including milk and products and cheese. This is already something quite important. So there is some awareness. I mean, supermarkets and big chains are usually accepting to host organic products, and this is already a very good change. But the conversion and reinforcement of the value chain and I mean, measures to stimulate the demand from the consumer side are also very important. I mean, I think this project is a very valuable one, and the help that has been provided to interested stakeholders to engage in organic farming and boost organic activities is essential. From our side, from the side of the delegation of the European Union, we are engaged in discussions with the government on how to transform Ukraine's economy into a green economy. There are some dates and ambitions that have been set, and sustainable food systems are part of this discussion. There's an important reform that is taking place right now on agricultural land. And I think it would be an opportunity to couple it also to a sustainable, to add a sustainable component into it. And with this, I mean, I'm looking forward to the discussions that we will have today. I'm sure we'll be very interested and eager to hear the other participants and panelists, and open to question at any time. So thank you very much for the invitation, and eager to listen to the rest of the event. Thanks.
Дякую дуже, пане Грегорі. Звичайно, було б дуже цікаво.
Yes, of course, that would have been very interesting if we would be able to comment what you're about to hear from all of the people who's going to be presenting today. And the issues that we're going to be discussing today are very complex, so we are welcome to comment. But I would like to pass the floor right now to Dmytro Shulha, the representative of the International Renaissance Foundation, not only because our project is supported by the Renaissance Foundation, but because the Renaissance Foundation spends a lot of efforts and time to support the European Green Deal in Ukraine. So please, Dmytro, the floor is yours.
Дуже дякую, радий всіх вітати. Дійсно, дуже приємно бути на такому заході, який збирає різні зацікавлені сторони, обговорити такі актуальні питання нашої інтеграції до Європейського зеленого курсу саме в сфері сільського господарства. Проєкт, в рамках якого...
Я дуже перепрошую, що перебиваю, але ми вас не чуємо взагалі.
Взагалі не чуєте?
Дуже-дуже тихо, дуже.
Дуже дивно. А якщо так? Так краще?
Ні.
Що, я нічого не змінював.
Можливо, в налаштуваннях звуку вам потрібно виставити якісь налаштування.
Вийшло? Ні, не вийшло. А я нормально?
А зараз?
Я чую вас нормально.
Так?
В мене? Так.
Ну, ви чуєте нормально. Для перекладу цього недостатньо.
Так, ну, що робити тоді, скажіть?
А скажіть, будь ласка, технічна підтримка, що робити?
Стрілочка. Так. У мене немає стрілочки вгору поруч з мікрофоном. Мікрофон, відео. У мене є от таке, можна зробити. Що ви зараз мене краще чуєте? Ні. А може я поставлю original audio, ні? Це буде. Добре, давайте можемо. Я не знаю тоді, що робити. Якщо це неможливо, давайте, може, я тоді пізніше. Давайте можна так.
А може ми інакше зробимо? Може ви говорите українською, а потім це саме англійською? Вам же це не складно?
Окей. Якщо так буде краще. Ну,
Пане Дмитро, а ви з телефону підключені, так?
так, я з телефону підключений, у мене комп'ютер не підтримує Zoom, в принципі.
Ну, здається, що ви просто використовуєте звук телефону, а не гарнітури. Мені здається, вам потрібно якось перевірити налаштування саме гарнітури вашої.
Ну, якось так вибірково дуже. Комусь добре чути, комусь не чути. Я не знаю, від чого це залежить, можливо. Ну,
We have
хотілося б...
troubles with hearing the speaker because we really would like to hear Dmitro, but unfortunately his sound is very low. So, like some people can hear me, some people can hear me terribly bad, so I don't not know what to do. Well, at least there is a very good way to check out who's listening to us, who's check out to the audience. Yes, and the audience is very active to that. It seems we can see that the people are really interested in this event, and like yes, and people say we can't hear you, we can't hear you, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. Yeah, there is an option just to speak louder. So yes, is it slightly better? And yes, everyone is saying that you should just change the settings of the audio.
Можна кричати, так буде чутно? А тепер я нікого не чую. Ой. Так, так. Уже уявляєте, уже спробував.
Ще один варіант запропонували, можливо, виключити
There is an
взагалі.
option that is actually turning off the Hangout. So maybe that would be the better or no, or maybe turn the video off as well and just speaking directly into the phone. No, it doesn't help.
Мені однаково. Весь час добре. Катя, перекладеш, що там у вас?
Я тобі можу запропонувати, я можу написати в чат короткі меседжі.
There is an offer. Dmitro says that he can write down into the chats just to make this main messages seen, and everybody will be able just to read out this welcoming message. I'm sorry for this technical problem. It never happened before, but it's just like, yes, and we've checked it out. So yeah, we have been hearing okay.
Коротше, я
So, okay, let us then try out this option with reading out the message for everyone in the chat. So when someone will read it out and we'll be able to translate it then and read it out. Okay, thank you. So thank you. Then I will just write my welcoming greetings into the chat. So yes, this is one of the methods of working when you're working with the online events. So, okay, great. Then I think we'll then try to switch to our next stage because we were going to read out the final welcoming speech. So I think that I would like to pass the floor to Olena Berezovska, who's going to join us slightly less. She's now the main organizer of the Congress, and now she's being torn apart between different events starting in the same time. So let us talk about the European Green Deal. What is European Green Deal? What is the strategy from farm to fork? In what way the European Green Deal and the farm to fork strategies are connected to the other documents of the European Union? So we would like to give you the overview, the general overview of the system, how it works and how it's being built and how it works. It's going to be, let us put it this way, an introductory presentation, an introductory session, and I would like to pass the floor to Katarina Shore to present it to you. So please, Katarina, the floor is yours, the introduction to the European Green Deal and Farm to Fork. So, Catherine, don't forget to turn the sound on. Yes, I have the sound on and the presentation is launched. I hope that everything is okay and you can see and hear well. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to welcome everyone as well. And I'm sure that a lot of people have already heard about the European Green Deal. And they have heard it from many points of view, and we are discussing the European Green Deal from the different points of view, in the point of view of agriculture and organic agriculture. And I just wanted to remind you of what is meant by the European Green Deal. So European Green Deal, and we're also we are translating it in Ukrainian language as the European Green Course, not the deal, because it's basically not a deal in its classical understanding. That is basically the overall complex of measures that will identify the European Union policies for the recent years to come, that touches the different spheres. It is a very complex document. It touches the issues of climate, energy, the industrial strategies and circular economies. This is about the agriculture policies, the green agriculture policies, but it also covers the different spheres of activity and life. I hope that you have already seen and have heard and seen this picture. Well, all of those spheres are being combined around the European Green Deal, and I do hope that you have already heard that the strategy from farm to fork is one of the key strategies, one of the key components for the European Green Deal. It's one of the key in this system. But what is that about, basically? What is the strategy from farm to fork is about? The strategy has been approved in May 2020. The strategy has been presented together with a strategy for biodiversity. And those are the strategies that are interconnected on many points, and we're going to take a look at that in more details further on. The F2F strategy is speaking about the sustainable production of the food products, about food safety, about the sustainable consumption of foods and switching to the sustainable food systems, of reducing the product waste and food waste, and this overall covers the it overall covers the issues not only of the production of the food, but it starts from the production and ends up in a full circle with the consumption and waste management. So basically it covers the whole production cycle and the whole cycle of use. Because when we are mentioning the goals of this strategy, then in Ukraine, we're mostly mentioning only one component of this strategy, the only one that concerns the production side. I think that you have already heard that there has to be that we have to reduce the usage of the chemical and chemical pesticides, that we need to reduce the usage of the fertilizers and microbiotic substances, which is important for us, that we have to increase the lands covered by the organic production and organic agriculture up to 50%, up to 25%. But this is only the moments that consider the aspects of production. There are other goals as well, for example, the sustainable food systems. And in this issue, there's going to be the full range of different measures that are going to be developed, the whole range of documents and measures that are going to be developed, that are going to be connected to the agriculture, the code of conduct for the best marketing and marketing practices, for example, the code of conduct when we were speaking about the activities in the food systems, reducing the waste and reducing the cost for the foods. There are some goals planned as well to reduce the overall food waste, which is very important, is the counteraction towards the food frauds. And I do believe for people who have been working with the organic production for a longer period of time, that is a very important issue to be covered, because this is something that we have been discussing very frequently when we are speaking about the organic production, of whether the traceability of the supply chains is possible. Thus, if we are speaking about the strategies from farm to fork, then I would like to say that the farm to fork strategy is connected and intertwined with all of the other spheres that make the European Green Deal. In my opinion, there is no opportunity for us to consider this strategy from farm to fork strategy. You cannot take it separately from transportation, for example, because we know that the agriculture uses transportation and different transport equipment, mobility equipment, starting from the very production line and using to process the fields and landlords. Then the transportation is as well being used in the logistics moments. And a couple of the aspects and for the other spheres, and when the from farm to fork strategy is being intertwined, for example, speaking with the biodiversity, not only reducing, but not just reducing the pesticides use, but also about increasing the volumes of the organic agriculture lands. But it's also an important question of turning the lands and agricultural lands to the natural landscapes and how we can use it as a reserved lands, and how this goal can be implemented in Ukraine. Unfortunately, we have a different moment in Ukraine because the areas are being taken for the agricultural use and not being used as natural reserves. Important issues about preserving the ecosystems of water basins and rivers. We know that Ukraine is already in the risk zone, and we understand that there is not enough resources, water resources in Ukraine. We know that there is a high risks for us as well. And there is also expected the development of the forestation strategy. We have already started this discussion in the European Union, and we're looking forward to developing it in Ukraine as well. The climate issues. All of the Green Deal is connected very broadly to the issues of the climate change and the climate legislation. So I'm not going to draw your attention to that. This is an overall goals about becoming climate neutral. Speaking on the pollution, then For example, there is a methane strategy on its way in order to prevent the additional emissions of methane. And in the European Union, around 53% of the methane emissions are being formed by the agriculture. So that is why this this strategy will definitely cause some changes in agriculture. The soils, an important issue for Ukraine, because we had a lot of conversations about preserving and restoring the fertility of the soils. And there's a very important issue and important aspect that is directly connected to the agricultural production and those methodologies and methods that are being used for the agricultural work. And right now, we have been developing, right now, the new strategy for the European Union on the health of soils is being developed. The surveys have already been launched on what is the future of the strategy, how the strategy should look like, and as far as I know, it soon will be presented. There are other supporting documents for the European Green Deal that you should also mention in the structure and in the context of the agriculture. There is the chemical sustainability strategy, the industrial strategies, the action plan on circular economy, the trade strategies, the again, the CBAM, the cross-border carbon regulation mechanism that has been highly discussed in Ukraine as well, because this mechanism has been developed. It is in development right now, and I do believe that this is the mechanism and the fiscal system that is very frightening for our exporters. It's not clear yet whether it will consider the agricultural products as well. Right now, there is this strategy that has been developed for the soils, and there is the action plan again on the zero pollution of air, water resources, and soils. And there are some other initiatives that will be interconnected and that will be connected not only with the production, but with the recycle and the consumption, the packaging of the food products. A couple of resources that I would like to advise you to take a look at how you can get additional information about the European Green Deal. First of all, you can take a look at our site, the Green Dossier site. So there is we are discussing a lot of needed information about the European Green Deal and in what way the processes will take place and in what way the European Green Deal will influence Ukraine as well. The strategy from farm to fork that is being located at the European Commission site. There are two additional documents. Okay, one document that has been prepared last year, that was the analytical document about the European Green Deal, about the main opportunities and threats for Ukraine, and the resource and analytical think tank resources and environment. They have prepared this analytical note, and they have a very basic information about how the European Green Deal will influence Ukraine in a very easy to read format. And their think tank is also watching and following the main processes that take place, and you can take a look at their site of the European Green Deal, and you can learn the main key strategies that are going to be used and the one that I've mentioned today. There is yet another organization, the Dossier group. They're also following and tracking the actions for the European Green Deal, and you can take a look at their timeline, what is planned to be approved in the framework of the European Green Deal. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Katerina. Thank you very much. That was an overview, a very general overview, but let us now try to get a little bit deeper into the organic peculiarities of the new Green Deal, because you might be aware that quite recently But quite recently, we have seen the Action Plan on Organic Production by the European Union that has been published, and we've invited Miguel de Porras, who is the head of the European Office of the FIBO, the European Institute for the Organic Production, to tell us a little bit more about this new action plan, European Union Organic Action Plan, and in what way it can influence our production as well, how it can influence Ukrainian agriculture producers. So, Miguel, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tamara.
Дуже дякую, Тамаро. Перш за все, хочу вам подякувати через те, що для мене це велика честь мати можливість сьогодні брати участь у вашій події. Хочу вам подякувати, хочу подякувати організаторам. І я сподіваюся, що зараз все працює. Дайте мені знати, якщо є якісь питання, я намагатимусь теж говорити повільно для того, щоб перекладачі могли виконувати свою роботу. Отже, в нас вже є презентація, вона вже перекладена українською. Я перепрошую, тому що моя розмовна українська недостатньо добре, проте я в будь-якому разі так само буду показувати вам українську презентацію. Сподіваюся, що вона вам сподобається. Отже, перш за все, в межах своєї презентації мені би хотілося підсумувати і окреслити загалом план дій щодо розвитку органічного виробництва. Його було представлено буквально 3 тижні тому. Це дуже свіжий документ наразі. Я так само з вами хочу представити цей план дій, а далі так само хочу дещо проаналізувати, висловити деякі свої думки щодо цього і розказати про можливі наслідки для цього плану для деяких країн, зокрема для України. Мене звати Мігель де Порас, я є головою Європейського відділення Інституту розвитку органічного виробництва ФІБО Європа, і ми так само працюємо дуже близько з Європейською комісією, ми розташовуємося майже поруч з ними, саме тому ми якраз маємо можливість представити цей план, оскільки теж брали участь в його розробці. Але перед тим, як вже почати, мені би хотілося окреслити деякий політичний контекст. Перш за все, мені хотілося би сказати, що дійсно цей план дій щодо органічного виробництва, він так само відповідає стратегіям, які були розроблені до того. І звичайно, він намагається допомогти нам досягати цих цілей, які були окреслені в стратегічному плані. Але це так само дуже великий виклик для Європейського Союзу також. Тамара сказала, що дійсно це може бути виклики для України, але насправді в нас досі є велика різниця думок і в Європейському Союзі також, як це може бути досягнено. Через те, що дійсно, перш за все, мені здається, дуже важливо наголосити те, що в нас є наукова згода щодо важливості органічного виробництва. Це дуже важливо, оскільки в нас є дуже велика кількість інвестицій, яка вкладається в це поле, і це надзвичайно важливо це згадати. І ще один важливий момент політичного ландшафту, який відбувається в той момент, який дуже добре пояснює, для чому цей план дуже важливий, це так само відсутність оновлення поколінь у сільському господарстві. В нас в Європейському Союзі всі люди, які займаються фермерством, здебільшого мають 60 років. І навіть відсоток людей старших за 50 дуже високий. Тож Європейський Союз так само сподіваються, що прийняті відповідні дії допоможуть надихати людей починати свою роботу, починати своє життя в сільських зонах також. І ми розуміємо, що органічне фермерство наприклад, ми знаємо, ви побачили, що, наприклад, власники органічних господарств, вони на 10 років молодші, ніж власники звичайних сільських господарств. І тому це дуже важливе так само питання переходу на органічну політику для європейського законодавства. Далі це так само є загальний тренд розвитку органічного ринку, як було згадано так само. Ми бачимо тренди ринку зараз, що наразі найвищий зростання в сільськогосподарського ринку показує саме органічний сектор, і це теж важливо згадати. Так само, я думаю, що ви вже знаєте, що Європейський Союз проводить різноманітні політичні обговорення протягом уже 5 років щодо цих регламентів. Регламент цей було було прийнято в 2018 році, а він вступить в дію, вступить в чинність з наступного року. Тож ми створювали так само юридичну основу, законодавчу основу для майбутніх років, для того, щоб полегшити процеси виконання цього плану дій. Це теж дуже важлива підстава. Так само у нас є так само спільна сільськогосподарська політика, яка була не дуже ефективна. Це насправді було доволі великі політичні засади. Вона принесла значні успіхи, але в найсвіжіших перемовинах щодо цієї сільськогосподарської політики намагалися так само запропонувати деякі заходи для того, щоб зробити наше сільське господарство більш дружнім до природи і до навколишнього середовища, але деякі країни насправді були проти цього. Саме тому мені здається, що Європейський Союз і шукає якихось додаткових способів стимуляції для того, щоб вже промотувати і стимулювати розвиток органічного господарства. І ще один із моментів – це те, що ми бачили дійсно про питання і кращої організації органічного сектору. Це дуже важливо, власне, яким чином лобіюються ці питання на фінансовому рівні. Теж це ще одна з причин, чому Європейська комісія поміняла свій фокус і свою увагу на більш органічний підхід. Мені здається, що це вже теж згадувалося представниками делегації, що органічні фермери – це насправді найбільш інноваційні у сільському господарстві в Європейському Союзі. Нам треба це визнати, що дійсно це фермери, які дивляться на майбутнє, яким потрібно мати більше доступу до ринку, які дають більше вартості в своїх продуктах, які використовують найбільш органічні інноваційні технології. Мені хотілося дати цей загальний контекст, в якому я намагався пояснити, чому Європейська комісія наразі так багато своїх зусиль вкладає в тому, щоб почати допомагати секторові розвиватися. Тому що дійсно це не те, що можна здійснити за одну ніч, це те, що потребує довгих системних змін. Тепер щодо плану дій план дій з розвитку органічного виробництва. Він складається з 23 конкретних дій і 54 конкретних пунктів. Це дуже об'ємний документ, і мені здається, що дійсно це дуже важливий момент, і було б добре, щоб весь сектор з ним ознайомився, бо це дуже важливий інструмент дії. Він розділений на 3 напрямки. Перший – це питання органічна їжа і продукти всіх, стимулювання попиту і забезпечення довіри з боку споживачів. Другий напрямок – це стимулювання переходу до органічного виробництва. Це стосується виробництва. І вже третій напрямок, який покриває цей план дій, це так само посилення внеску органічного виробництва у сталість розвитку. У нас є 3 основні аспекти – попит, виробництво і сталість. Ми розуміємо, що це органічне виробництво – це не єдиний метод, він має так само долучатися і до загальних методів сталеного розвитку. Давайте тепер подивимося, знаю, тут дуже багато буде тексту, але мені здається, що дуже добре, якщо ми зможемо дуже детально оглянути цей документ. Перший напрямок стосується споживання і попиту. Тут є 6 окремих секцій, які так само розбудовано, поділено на 8 основних дій. На цьому першому слайді ви побачите, що тут йдеться про просування відповідного споживання, промотування логотипу органічного продукту. Ви знаєте, що, власне, це один, напевно, з найбільш впізнаваних логотипів маркувань на ринку Європи. Мені здається, що воно було дуже успішним, і це була правильна ідея інвестувати в цей логотип. Але так само є просування закладів харчування, органічних закладів харчування і використання зелених державних закупівель для шкіл, наприклад, за те, щоб школи отримували так само органічне харчування, органічні продукти для використання у їдальнях в школах. А другий момент, так само, який тут так само вкладається, це фокус на те, щоб протидіяти харчовому шахрайству і посиленню довіри до споживачів. Але в пункті 1.6 ви бачите, так само тут є пропозиція до залучення усього сектору, і всі роздрібна оптова торгівля, ресторани, кейтеринг, усі учасники ланцюга вартості, вони мають бути залучені в тому. Це дуже важливий підхід комісії. Не лише говорити про фермерів, про сільські господарства, але й говорити про всіх учасників ланцюга для того, щоб активно виконувати цей план дій. Другий напрямок, знову ж таки, як я вже сказав, тут концентрація на виробництві. Тут нам йдеться про те, щоб використовувати, власне, перехід, підтримувати розвиток цього сектору, і створення нової спільної сільськогосподарської політики, нової рибної політики. Так само йдеться про розширення сфер використання органічних продуктів також, створення додаткових науково-дослідницьких центрів, наприклад, так само підтримка організації виробничого збутового ланцюга. ланцюга для того, щоб дійсно підтримувати різноманітні організації в усьому ланцюгу постачання і допомагати їм виходити на ринок та встановлювати відповідні ціни. Ланцюг збуту так само важливий напрямок. Це те, що дуже важливо підтримування додаткових коротких ланцюгів, оскільки це дуже складно, але це теж буде підтримувати, і вони будуть найкраще отримати переваги від впровадження цієї ініціативи. Це дуже інноваційний підхід у цьому плані дій. Окремий пункт щодо розвитку аквакультури, тому що аквакультура насправді дуже ще дуже позаду від загального розвитку навіть і в органічному виробництві, тож окремий пункт для підтримки розвитку органічної аквакультури. Третій напрямок щодо внеску у сталість і сталість розвитку. Тут комісія дуже вирішила виділити значну кількість грошей на дослідницькі фонди для того, щоб розробляти різноманітні способи зменшити загальний слід для навколишнього кліматичний слід сільського господарства. Так само дуже велике, наприклад, питання щодо різноманітних вітамінів В2, які використовуються у кормах для тварин, тому що дуже сектор досі від них залежить. Уже існують альтернативи, яку Єврокомісія шукає різноманітні способи замінити речовини, які залишають значний кліматичний слід у харчовому ланцюзі, наприклад, у тваринництві також. Останні моменти в цьому напрямку щодо внеску в сталість, підтримання добробуту тварин. Добробут тварин – це те, що дуже важливе для європейських споживачів, і важливо, що Європейська комісія звернула увагу на це, і використання додаткових матеріалів для захисту водних ресурсів. Це те, що дуже важливо, і Єврокомісія так само вважає, що необхідно використовувати цей підхід також. Щодо висновки загалом, перш за все, що цей план дій, він не стосується лише якоїсь однієї з конкретних цілей, які згадувала, наприклад, Катерина, щодо, власне, збільшення частки органічного виробництва у 25%. Йдеться лише так само ще про зниження використання пестицидів та зниження використання різноманітних речовин як добрив, наприклад, різноманітних мікробіотичних чи хімічних речовин як добрив. Тож тут підтримуються усі цілі, не лише одна, підтримуються всі цілі комплекси. Мені хочеться сказати, що це дуже чітко організований документ. Я думаю, що він дуже гарно долучатиметься до подальшого розвитку сфери. Частково комісія, вони пропонують ці системи для хорошого контролю за виконанням цих дій. Попередній план дій, не те, щоб він був поганий через те, що там не було важелів контролю, але в цьому плані дій тут дійсно є гарна організаційна структура, хороша форма звітування для того, щоб оцінити досягнення відповідних цілей. Так само є постійні середньостроковий огляд у 2024 році, яке буде представлено на конференціях. Комісія буде так само організовувати органічний день на території всього Європейського Союзу. Це та дія, яку дуже потребував цей сектор, щоб Європейський Союз організовував ось такий день органічного виробництва для того, щоб промотувати це виробництво. Це дуже цікава ідея також. Мені так само хотілося б це згадати, що дійсно це план дій щодо органічного виробництва. Це, знаєте, це м'який документ м'якого права. Це він не має обов'язкової юридичної сили, але він покриває кілька вимірів врядування загалом, оскільки це означає, що він встановлює певні цілі для країн-учасниць Європейського Союзу, і врешті різні уряди, вони будуть так само робити рекомендації для національних стратегічних планів, для спільної сільськогосподарської політики, зважаючи на цей план дій. Це дуже важливо, тому що це так само відповідатиме цілям спільної сільськогосподарської політики. Це дуже велика політика, на яку виділяється значна кількість ресурсів з Європейського Союзу, як ви знаєте. Дуже важливо, що так от будуть створюватися національні плани дій, і кожна Єврокомісія буде так само запитувати в кожного уряду, який національний план розвитку в них є, і яким чином вони долучаються до досягнення спільних цілей. Тож, дійсно, це дуже важливо так само, що комісія буде далі відслідковувати, чи досягає кожна країна окремих визначених цілей національних планів. Так само щодо далі вже додаткових ресурсів для дослідження. 30% фондів буде виділено на розвитку галузі сільського господарства, лісового господарства та сільських територій. Вони будуть давати 30% на дослідження в цій сфері. Це дуже значна частка ресурсів, які будуть виділені на це, і мені здається, що це дуже хороша ініціатива від Європейської комісії. Так само само вони запропонують додаткові ресурси для того, щоб вивчати додаткові ситуації, пов'язані з оподаткуванням на харчові продукти. Ми будемо дивитися, наскільки податок на додану вартість впливає на загальну доступність продуктів. Буде так само далі формуватися додаткові ресурси на формулювання та промоцію сільськогосподарської політики. І ще були деякі інші конкретні моменти в плані дії. Ви бачите, є кластер 6, який поділено на 7 основних сфер, і одна із цих сфер це теж складає 30%, а власне це йдеться про близько 200 мільйонів євро за наступні 10 років. Це величезні кошти для дослідження в органічній сфері, і я думаю, що це дійсно допоможе покращити органічні технології в Європейському Союзі. Сподіваюся, в мене є ще трошки часу. Я перепрошую, це в мене така дуже деталізована презентація, багато моментів, які треба покрити, але сподіваюся, що я скоро закінчу. Тож мені хотілося дати ще так само кілька оцінок, тому що дійсно ми в своєму інституції ми розробили так само презентацію про те, яким чином ми можемо виконати ці обіцянки. Мені здається, що тут є дуже важливі моменти, які будуть важливі для цієї презентації також, тому що ви знаєте, у нас є 25% органічного виробництва, органічних земель, які ми маємо отримати до 2030 року. І в нас так само буде велике зростання населення. Це дуже-дуже велика, амбітна ціль і для Європейського Союзу також. Мені важливо було так само це згадати. І швидкість зростання площі, вона зазвичай повільніша, ніж зростання ринку загалом. І мені здається, що це дає так само нам нові можливості. Що мені ще хотілося теж сказати, що Європейський Союз дуже має нерівне розподілення органічного виробництва, і це так само буде змінювати те, як кожна держава підходитиме до виконання цієї цілі. І, власне, будуть різні цілі для виходу для ринку, будуть різні можливості, які відкриватимуться саме через те, що органічне виробництво розташовано в різних країнах по-різному. Ми так само в нашому роботі стверджуємо, що подібний перехід потребуватиме трансформації для європейського ринку сільського господарства, не лише в питанні використання сільськогосподарських земель, але й в обробці і далі в логістиці, обробці та виходу на ринок. Ми так само дивимося на які проблеми будуть найбільш проблемними у випадку впровадження цього курсу, цього підходу. Ми бачимо, що дійсно, наприклад, ми бачимо деякі продукти, які так само можуть бути імпортовані з України. Я думаю, що на цьому графіку ви бачите, що тут є великий простір для можливостей для України, щоб досягнути цієї цілі в 25% органічних продуктів. Для того, щоб цього досягнути, потрібен додатковий експорт. Наприклад, особливо, якщо ми говоримо про м'ясні продукти, тут буде потрібен імпорт, наприклад, зернових культур, олійних культур, в чому Україна дуже конкурентна. І я хочу так само ще показати вам, що дійсно Україна друга країна, найбільший другий експортер в Україні Європейського Союзу органічних продуктів. Тож Україна дуже великий партнер Європейського Союзу в цій сфері. Особливо ви так само постачаєте нам зернові культури. Ми бачимо, що власне основні потоки торгівлі з України до Європи в органічній сфері це дійсно зернові, але деякі інші позиції, дещо відстають. І мені здається, що дійсно і запровадження нової політики в органічному виробництві даватиме нові можливості для українського експорту. Є деякі пункти, які стосуються третіх країн. Окрім експорту, є ще ось ці 3 пункти, які здебільшого так само фокусуються на питаннях харчового шахрайства, простежуваності та транспортування. Тут лише йдеться про те, що дійсно ми можемо переконатися в тому, що споживачі органічної продукції можуть довіряти імпортованим продуктам. Це питання простежуваності усього ланцюга виробництва та вирощування. Це всі ці дії, які так само мають бути, які так само використовуються і в третіх країнах. Наприклад, тут ви зараз на цьому слайді ви бачите, наприклад, політика просування чи промотування. Це залежить зазвичай від, наприклад, Міністерства торгівлі. Це те, що може бути так само застосовано. Відповідні якісь нагороди чи премії, які відзначають роботу найкращих органічних виробництв. Це те, що пов'язано з, наприклад, відзначенням найкращих практик в Європейському Союзі. Ми цим займаємося в подальші роки. Також мені здається, це найкращий спосіб ділитися досвідом досвідом щодо використання найкращих практик у цій сфері. Державні і відкриті закупівлі, зелені державні закупівлі – це те, що може відкрити значний попит внутрішньо будь-якої країни на органічну продукцію. Якщо це буде успішно, це можна бути застосовано і в інших країнах поза Європейським Союзом. Співпраця з приватним сектором, що дуже важливо, розробка біорайонів, про те, яким чином це може бути так само застосовано і в країнах, таких як Україна. І вже перед завершенням мені би хотілося так само поділитися деякими своїми думками щодо плану дії з розвитку органічного виробництва. Це історичний важливий момент для розвитку органічного виробництва в Україні. Це дуже важливо, тому що органічний сектор не чекав такої амбітної програми, і мені здається, що це дуже важливий крок. Також порівняння з планом дій 2014 року комісія визнала, що ми більше не є нішевим ринком, що ми стаємо з ніші, переходимо до мейнстриму, до основної ринкової частини ринку. Це дуже важливо, оскільки це дуже допомагає нам більше залучати інтерес державних органів. Також це дуже залежатиме від кожної країни-учасниці Європейського Союзу. Ви знаєте, вони не зобов'язані приймати цю план дій, і в нас має бути розпочатися внутрішній політичний процес всередині Європейського Союзу, який показуватиме те, як кожна країна буде впроваджувати цей план дій. Комісія виділятиме додаткові ресурси. Я бачу, що я зовсім завершую свій час. Я зараз хочу означити тільки кілька моментів щодо України. Це ті можливості, які, мені здається, тут з'являються в Україні. Мені здається, що навіть попри те, що тут не йдеться про треті країни в цьому плані дій, але є багато дій, які насправді можуть так само допомогти збільшити попит на українську продукцію. Також збільшення попиту, вона станеться, як на мою думку, станеться значно швидше, ніж збільшення виробництва. Це створить додаткові експортні можливості для третіх країн, зокрема і для України, оскільки Україна є важливим партнером Європейського Союзу, і ці можливості будуть продовжуватися. Так само є ще питання щодо олійних культур і олійного насіння. Мені здається, що дійсно збільшення культури тваринництва в Європейському Союзі буде так само створювати додаткові можливості для українського експорту цих культур. І, звичайно, ми говоримо про використання нових технологій та можливостей для подальшого розвитку органічного сектору, адже будуть відбуватися нові дослідження, що теж є хороша можливість для України. Це все з мого боку. Я сподіваюся, що вам все було зрозуміло. Дякую за увагу.
Дуже дякую. Це дуже цікаво, але це дуже ґрунтовно.
Very interesting, but it was very intense. Now we need a lot of time to consume and comprehend this presentation. It's very good that we have both Ukrainian and English version of this presentation, so we can actually send both presentation to our audience, because really this is something that you have to consider now thoroughly, that you have to analyze and reread it once again. Miguel, thank you very much. And right now, I think that I would really like to voice out the welcoming points on behalf of the Renaissance Foundation, because Dmytro Shulha has written the text to us and I will read it out. So greetings to all participants and sorry for the technical problems. The project Green Dossier is one of the winners of this last year grand call, which International Renaissance Foundation announced in cooperation with the European Union last year. And our goal is announcing this, and further calls on the topic is to strengthen the role, voice, and capacity of the Ukrainian civil society in promoting the harmonization of Ukrainian policies, including the agricultural policy, with the European Green Deal. And today's event is an example of such a role of civil society in organizing stakeholders' discussion in order to shape a common vision of how Ukraine can go through all of these transformational challenges. And at the same time, we must see the opportunities which are there for Ukraine, even though the challenges are high. And Ukrainian agriculture, in case of integration to European Great Deal, there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunities for Ukraine. So that was the greeting words from Dmytro Shulha. Unfortunately, we were not able to hear Dmytro, and we didn't have this opportunity to talk to him in a normal way, let us hope that maybe he'll be able to do something with his devices and he will be able to join us later on in discussion, but we'll see that. Let's hope for the best. But right now, I would like to pass the floor to Olena Berezovska, who joined us from a different parallel event of the Organic Ukraine Congress. So please, Olena, the floor is yours. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to welcome you at our Congress, our Congress Organic Ukraine 2021. We're really grateful to the partners of Organic Ukraine, to the informational agency Green Dossier, and I'm really grateful to Tamara Malkova and Katerina Shore. So, because for many years we have been developing and building the organic market in Ukraine, but still this year is the position of the European Commission about the organic production and its role for the European Green Deal is an important support for the Ukrainian sector. I think that for the very first time we have felt that the changes are possible and the changes are irreversible. So, without having this unified international position, European position, international position, it was really hard for the Ukrainian actors to it was really hard for the Ukrainian actors to make sure that the Ukrainian community, Ukrainian agricultural actors, that there is no other way to make agriculture sustainable except for going organic. Of course, there are many ways, and even the European Green Deal does not mention the 100% of organic agricultural land in Ukraine and in the world overall. We dream of having 100% of organic land, agricultural land in Ukraine, but even those ambitious goals that have been set out, even by our government, on increasing the overall organic agricultural lands in Ukraine, on increasing the level of sales and the volumes of organic products in Ukraine for the domestic market, for the external markets. The goals of our government are very ambitious as well, and we're going to support its implementation. I wish you the best event today, and I would like to mention that there is another part of the Congress that is dealing with the issue of shifting from the conventional agriculture to organic agriculture. That is a parallel session, so if you're interested to that, you can check it as well. So those are the small steps that will help us to go to get closer to the European Green Deal and to get closer to the Ukrainian Green Deal that is going to be discussed today as well. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best, and I'm going to join you during the panel discussion that is going to start slightly later.
Дякую, Олена.
Thank you, Olena. Thank you very much. We wish all the best and all the successes to the Congress. Yesterday, you've had all of a very intense day. Let us hope that today and tomorrow will be as interesting. But let us now switch to the final presentation that we have for today, and I would like to invite Mr. Mykola Shlapak. Please let us know that everything's okay with you. Hello, Mykola. So, yes, well, basically the research that has been done by the TNA program, and Mykola is going to give you all the updates on that. But the only thing that I wanted to say as well, that in our work, we're constantly following what the TNA is doing. We're using their materials and their information for our work as well, because it is very interesting. It is very detailed. And the only thing I'm actually sorry for is that this project is under the Ministry of Ecology. And so basically it is not really tightly connected with them with the ministries of the agriculture and Ministry of Economical Development, Agriculture and Trade. Even though it concerns the agriculture producers, it would have been very good if we could help establish the collaboration. Maybe we'll be able to establish those contacts between the people from the ecological sector, from the environmental sectors and the agricultural producers. Thank you very much, Tamara. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and giving me the floor for this presentation, because it is very important for us to voice out the results of our projects and to provide you the assumptions and evaluations that have been made, and to give you the update on the results that we've received, especially if we're speaking for the people involved in the sector of the organic agriculture. And we're going to be mentioning as well the connection between the organic agriculture with the environmental policies and protecting the environment. That's the environment of that the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources is responsible for. I think you can't see my presentation yet, so can I launch the presentation? Yes, Mikola, if you want to launch your presentation, you're not going to be sharing your presentation on your own. Yes, if I may, yeah, okay, so I will share your presentation. Good.
Я поки що розпочну. Тобто проект оцінка технологічних
So I'll start. Overall, we have trying to evaluate the agricultural needs. The project has been implemented in collaboration between the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, and it's the part of the global project that has been implemented for more than 100 countries all over the world. So overall, we wanted to outline what is the overall connection between the agriculture and climate policies. If we will consider the overall structure of the emissions of the greenhouse gases in Ukraine, then you will see that the agricultural activities and activities associated with agriculture, they cover 29% of the overall emissions. And if we will consider the overall land use sector, then that will come up with a 29% of emissions. And those emissions, you can see, they are divided in the national cadastre of the greenhouse gases emissions. But if we will get it all together, that will cover 98 million tons of the equivalent CO2 for the greenhouse gases in 2018. The main sources of these emissions, those are the emissions of the agricultural soils and the emissions on the losing the organic CO2 in the soils, and we will consider its dynamics further on of how it is connected to the agriculture and organic agriculture as well. And there is an important part of this emission share is the shares on the cattle husbandry overall. There are additional moments on the methane and the nitrogen emissions, and there are additional emissions connected to the usage of the transportation and the usage and consumption of the energy resources at the agricultural enterprises. The TNA projects and the technologies needs assessment, the project has been implemented with the support of the Global Environmental Foundation and with the methodological support of the Danish Technical University, and it's been coordinated by the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources in Ukraine. In the framework of this project, so you can see we have prepared the two reports. The first report was the overall evaluation of the technical needs, when we have chosen together after the consultations with all of the stakeholders, we have chosen the 5 priority technologies. Those were the organic agriculture, the technologies of the minimal processing of land, like low fill and low tilt, technologies producing the biogas out of the leftovers of the animal breeding, and using additional informational and telecommunicational technologies to decrease the emissions of the greenhouse gases. The second report that has been dedicated to analyzing the barriers, there was additional offers on the policies that could improve the development of the technologies, and We have offered in the second report the key directions for the state policies that can support the development of the organic agriculture as well. So if we will concentrate our attention to the organic agriculture, then I do believe that most of the participants of our today's event, they have a better understanding of the sectors and the dynamics of this development. They know it better than I do. So basically, we can drive our attention to those aspects connected to the climate policies and the environmental policies in climate change. So the organic agriculture gives us the opportunity to decrease the emissions of the greenhouse gases based on couple moments. First of all, we're going to stop using extensively the mineral fertilizers, and we will be able to decrease the overall emissions based on that. And there are additional opportunities for, again, capturing the organic CO2 in the soils using those technologies, using organic soils, organic fertilizers, using the covering cultures and covering crops for preserving the additional nutritive elements in the soils. So we have conducted both the field research and having the experience of different products in organic agriculture. We understand that the overall potential of the decrease is around 1 ton of the CO2 equivalent per 1 hectare per year for the agricultural enterprises that are shifting from the conventional agriculture to organic. And we're going to take a closer look to the main sources of emissions connected to the organic agriculture. So the first aspect is stepping out from using mineral fertilizers and then decreasing the emissions. Then you can see at this slide and this presentation, in Ukraine, the usage of the mineral fertilizers is increasing. It has a clear trend of increasing, and we can see that we're increasing the areas where the fertilizers are being used, and we can see that the overall average consumption of the nitrogen based fertilizers per the area is increasing as well. In 2018, the level of the usage of the nitrogen-based fertilizers has been overall 33.5 million tons, which also shows the overall growing trend. What has to be said about this case is that the source of the emissions is not only the nitrogen that is a part of the mineral fertilizers, but any types, any sources of nitrogen overall. The mineral fertilizers or the nitrogen, the residue nitrogen that has been emissioned because of the plant's leftovers. So basically, even in the organic production, in the organic methodology, doesn't mean that there will be no emissions of the nitrogen overall, but this process will give us the opportunity to decrease the amount of the nitrogen emissions, nitrogen gas emissions from the mineral fertilizers. The second categories of emissions is the losses of the organic CO2 in the soils. Those emissions also have a clear growing trend, and if at the very beginning of the 90s, we had even negative figures about that. So basically, the agricultural soils, they have consumed the CO2 and they have been the sources for the consumption of the CO2. Then if we take a look at 2018, then you can see that the overall volume of the emissions has overcome the overall emissions of by this category of the emissions by the soils has overcome the exceeded the consumption by all of the forests of Ukraine by 17. So basically, there are many different practices that are directed on preserving and increasing the organic CO2 in soils. Like, for example, the organic land processing that also gives us the opportunity to decrease the overall volume of emissions in this category. As I've already said, the second report that we have produced, we have been analyzing the barriers for implementing the key technologies. And if we're speaking about the organic production, then we have outlined the exporting barriers because there are additional requirements and additional control measures when we are exporting the organic products to European Union. The competition with the foreign producers and international producers, the producers have usually the access to the state support of their countries. For example, this kind of state support programs work not only in the European Union, but also in Turkey. There are some economical barriers. For example, there is the low demand for the organic products in the local market, in the domestic markets. There were the barriers of capacities and additional instrumental barriers because there is this low awareness about the organic about the organic products and organic labeling. At the next slide, you can see additional opportunities of how we can support the development of those technologies that we have outlined in our report, introducing, for example, the state support during the transition periods, calculating per specific amount of money per hectare of the area that has been dedicated to organic growing, using the additional procurement mechanism. So using non-financial criteria during the procurement in order to stimulate the demand for the organic products. The full implementation of the national legislation about the organic production and labeling and marketing of the organic products, creating additional conditions for working with the mechanisms of the decrease of the emissions of the greenhouse gases, and creating additional measures to share the information about the benefits of the organic products. It is a pleasure for me to say that since we have written this report, we've had some progress going on. For example, right now it is being discussed to create additional measures of the state support. And for example, at our yesterday, I think we have discussed this issue at this Congress already, and I think it will be discontinued to discuss today. But overall, if we are speaking about the organic agriculture, and if we're speaking about all of the climate-based technologies for agriculture, we have outlined those key directions of the state policies that would stimulate the development of these technologies, and that's what stimulates the emission of the greenhouse gases. So overall, we're speaking about the need for improvement of the system of the state monitoring of the soil quality, the state support, implementing the mechanism of state support for both the climate sustainable technologies and supporting the climate sustainable technologies, applying some additional regulatory requirements, sharing the information about the new climate sustainable technologies, helping to improve and build the capacities, and sharing the information about the benefits of organic agriculture. If we're speaking about the system of the monitoring of the soil quality, that this is something that is going to be relevant for all of the sphere, or for all of the spheres working with um, crop planting, because we need to have a clear understanding of the chemical structure of the soils, and it will give you the better understanding and the better opportunities of planning your agricultural enterprise. It is very important to track the overall amount of the organic CO2 in soils that will help you to track how the soils consume CO2. So in these cases, we're also offering to synchronize the overall methodology for the sample selection, to establish the mechanisms of data exchange between different organizations, and engaging additional organization to this quality monitor of soils, and creating a database of tracking the soil's quality, updating the information of the organic CO2 for the specific soils and specific land lots on a constant basis. Another point, what has already been mentioned, the state support for climate sustainable technologies, because the climate technologies on one hand are decreasing the risks, decreasing the risk of climate change and decreasing the losses and costs for the society based on the climate change. So they're definitely different. These climate technologies, they have to have the state support as the additional, in case of additional costs, and they have to additional risks should be covered, as the additional costs should be covered by the state as well. For example, the decrease of the harvest, the decrease of all of the volume of the yields when the organic approaches or additionally climate sustainable technologies will be applied. It is important also to support the small and medium businesses because they have lower access to technologies and financial resources, and it is important to provide the state support with some additional conditions or additional limitations, for example, on additional limitations on informing the farmers of how to use the different practices and limitations to the usage of other practices. Regulatory requirements. What we mean under this regulation and requirements, that those are some limitations on some technologies that can be used. Those are requirements to the organic agriculture. So, for example, the full implementation of the national legislation and the usage of all of the procedure and regulatory documents that are presupposed by the legislation of Ukraine, by the law on organic production. But let us get to the next slide. The projects and to decrease the CO2 emissions. Those are very important and relevant issues about the organic agriculture. We are saying that the companies that are currently switching from conventional agriculture to organic agriculture based on the sustainable agricultural practices, they are going to increase the levels of the consumption of CO2 by the soils, and they're going to decrease the CO2 that will be freed into the atmosphere that can be then recalculated and turned into the so-called CO2 units that might be an additional source for financial incentives. So this CO2 units, they might be sold and the additional money can be engaged and attributed by the enterprise. Right now, the main source for the CO2 units can be traded at the voluntary market for the CO2 emissions, but there are other measures that can be implemented, for example, using additional fiscal incentives or creating the national system for the CO2 emissions trade, or creating a specific state foundation that would be the main source for the demand. So there are many different examples all over the world, in different countries all over the world, of how this approach can work. Capacity buildings. Capacity buildings is as well very important moment for all of the advisory boards and analytical boards, because the new technologies, they require the new knowledge and the new skills for the representatives of the agricultural sector. And sometimes there might not be the full enterprises that are working in agricultural sector. Sometimes we are talking only about the small and medium businesses that require additional support from the states. And the final moment for the final block of the measures and actions that can be taken, those are the informational campaigning. It is very important about informing about the benefits of the organic goods. It is very important to keep the society informed about the labeling for the organic foods and goods, and providing the additional access to the domestic market for the organic foods. Just to sum up, I would like to say that the agriculture is, on one hand, is the source for the CO2 emissions, but on the other hand, it also has broad opportunities to help decreasing the CO2 emission. It is definitely sensitive to the climate change as a sphere, but in the same time, it has the very great potential to adapt in case we're going to be using in new climate technologies. And that actually gives us the understanding how important it is to integrate the climate policies to the policies connected to the agricultural sector, how it is important to engage the climate policies into agricultural policies. The technology that help us to decrease the CO2 emission, they have a lot of benefits, for example, for adapting to the new climate conditions, to working with the new quality of soils, to preserving the quality of water resources, for the development of the rural areas and local communities. They also give us the opportunity in some way to improve the economical effectiveness of all the resources used and to decrease the risks, to mitigate the risks. To mitigate the risks of the CBAM mechanism that has been really hardly discussed in Ukraine as well. So the wide use of climate technologies will definitely need additional resources from the state. The state has to create conditions and has to provide the mechanisms, the support mechanisms for the further on scale and scaling up for the climate technologies. And the state has to do that in the sphere of organic agriculture as well. So right now, we are providing the second stage of our project, which is the evaluation of the ecological and climate needs. It presupposes that we will have the action plan developed on climate technologies. And today, the previous presentations, we have mentioned that there are different national action plans on the organic production and organic agriculture development. So I do believe for us that will be as well an opportunity to gather some ideas for our future national plan that will be mostly concentrated for the development of the organic sector. But in our case, this document will also include the key indicators for the goals, for example, on the areas of the agricultural land that has to be dedicated to the organic production. We will include the list of the specific actions and the specific measures that has to be done in order to support the development of certain climate technology. Maybe it will also include the sources of financial support with the support of which those actions can be implemented, the responsible bodies, the time frame. So I would like to ask all of the representatives of the sectors who are here with us today to join this process, because after this presentation, I'm going to give you the link in the chat for the very brief survey, and you can see there will be the links for the presentation and the link for the contacts. So any kind of offers or any kind of questions that you might have, they are very welcome. So if you would like to include some amendments into this document, we'll be really pleased to know your opinions too. So that was all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. Thank you, Mikola. Thank you, Mikola. Yes, has been a lot of information we have to think about right now. In what way we can now combine the organic sector, climate technologies, whether all the climate technologies that are being used in the organic sector are the right ones to be used. So it has to be combined. It has to be compatible. So there's a lot of things that we can think about. So I would like to run out through the chats just to make sure what's going on there. First of all, you might take a look because Katarina has left you the links about the document that she was referring to. I think everyone can see the chat on the lower panel of your window. There is a button that says chat. So basically take a look at that for a second. So we have the documents available for all of you, and we have some questions in the chats. Okay, the questions. Helping to get to European market. Who can help us to get to European market? I don't know who this question is addressed to, but maybe some of our speakers would like to cover that. So how can you get some help to enter the European markets? Okay, so I think we will just discuss it during our next part. Maybe we'll have some more people who will help us to discuss that. There are some more questions, I believe.
А як мені з англійською бути? Some experts believe that you Ага. А може ви прочитаєте, Катя, ви бачите це
Так.
повідомлення? О, так давайте просто ви його читаєте українською.
Може, я давайте прочитаю
So-
англійською. Буде
Українською,
краще.
українською одразу.
So we're going to read out the question that has been posted in the chat that has been voiced out in
Yes, I think it would be better. So the question is, some experts believe that EU can use a European Green Deal as a reference point in the trading agreements. For example, push trading partners toward common environmental goals in exchange for better trading tariffs. What do our panelists think? And do they believe it can influence further Ukrainian integration into the EU trading zone?
Так, хороше запитання.
That's a very good question, by the way. So I think we might leave it for the further on discussion, or
Оце уточнення, це пану
just maybe this clarification. There is also for Miguel. Can you please clarify what do you mean that the actions that can be
Пан Мігель, можете відповісти на це запитання? Бюджет на дослідження може бути
Miguel, can you cover that? Can we have this access to the resources for the research that has been financed by the European Union in Ukraine?
Прошу.
Thank you for the question. I mean, normally the European research funds are dedicated to the EU countries and associated countries who invest in research. What I mean by the replicable actions is it was not meaning on using the EU budget for that. It's meaning like ideas that the Ukraine government might take to develop. So it's like not a regard of the budget of the EU, but on the budget of Ukraine. I imagine, I'm not familiar with the situation in Ukraine, but to earmark some budget of research, I imagine they would be national research funds in Ukraine, and also the trade policy support. I imagine to dedicate the specific parts of these resources at national level would be relevant for that. I mean, in replication, I didn't mean that using EU money for developing that in Ukraine. It's meaning that ideas that can be uptaken by the Ukrainian government. Don't make a confusion. And maybe quickly on the previous question about the trade, I think there will be a lot of opportunities, but for example, take into account that the new European regulation on organic agriculture, this will require for equivalent countries already to negotiate to trade agreements the recognition of the control system of organic. So I think to be the organic sector to be part of the trade agreements is something that will be already happening. So I think this will be part. Anyway, the trade agreements are very complex and depend from one sector to the other. This will depend on the specific setting of the trade flows between Ukraine and the EU. But of course, the organic will be a specific chapter to be dealt with. Thank you.
Так, ну я так розумію, що
Thank you. I believe that's we also have the question for our further discussion coming on, because basically I've already started the discussion. We have already started the discussion, and I think we will continue in reading out once again your question from the chat. So please do not forget to use the chat to all of your questions. And I would like to pass the floor to Stefan Dressman, who is the head of Ukraine-German collaboration project in the framework of organic production, to give us a short, brief example from German experience. So in what way are you doing that?
для початку нашої дискусії. Пане Штефан, прошу.
Yes, thank you very much. You hear me?
Так, дякую. Ви мене чуєте? Чудово, чудово, дякую. Вітання з Німеччини. Ви знаєте, я зараз сижу тут в Німеччині. Мені би, звичайно, хотілося бути в Києві, але, на жаль, через корону мені довелося залишитися в Німеччині. Але сподіваюся, що за кілька тижнів зможу приїхати до Києва також. Мені здається, що дійсно в нас дуже насичений тиждень, тому що у вівторок у нас була оця подія щодо підтримки органічного сільського господарства з державною підтримкою. Була більше ніж 100 людей було вчора. Майже 200 людей, яких я бачу зараз. У нас дуже багато людей, які беруть участь в нашому конгресі. Це чудово, що так багато людей зацікавлені в органічному сільському господарстві. Ви знаєте, хочу вам дуже подякувати за запрошення взяти участь в цій події. Мене попросили так само відзвітувати про те, яким чином стратегія органічного переходу втілюється в Німеччині. І ви знаєте, це була би насправді дуже довга лекція, яка би вичерпала час загальної події. Але якщо поговорити загалом, почати дискусію, ми знаємо, що нова стратегія спільного сільського господарства – це лише початок. Ми знаємо, що дискусія, вона загалом дуже контроверсійна. Навіть в Німеччині, після всіх рекомендацій Європейської комісії, ми знаємо, що сільськогосподарські політики, вони дуже сильно відрізняються, ніж те, що було раніше в Німеччині, ніж те, що проводиться зараз. І про це багато людей теж говорили. Йдеться про так само перерозподіл значної кількості грошей, і ці гроші тепер будуть розподілені інакше в майбутньому, ніж вони розподілялися до цього. Тож, ви знаєте, основні так само питання політики були дуже гарно пояснені попередніми спікерами та спікерками, і тому я вам за це дуже вдячний. Але якщо говорити про Німеччину, то ж дійсно ми так само прагнемо благополуччя і в сфері сільського господарства, органічного сільського господарства. Але мені би хотілося навести кілька прикладів, які, на мою думку, не дуже добре проявлені. Наприклад, з того, що може бути цікаво для України, для того, щоб розширити органічне виробництво. І мені би хотілося обмежитися 5 прикладами. Приклад перший. І фермери у Європейському Союзі, вони отримують так само так звані, наприклад, базову оплату від Європейського Союзу. Для німецького фермера це 300 євро для гектар на рік. Ви бачите, тобто це насправді платежі, це додаткова премія, яка покриває невеликі вимоги. На додачу Європейський Союз так само виділяє додаткові фонди на розвиток сільських районів. Це так звані виплати на органічне фермерство. Вони так само виплачуються з цих фондів для того, щоб підтримувати розвиток сільських зон. Для розвитку сільських зон Європейський Союз надає кілька мільярдів євро щороку на, наприклад, розвиток цих сільських зон і в Німеччині, і в багатьох інших країнах. Питання було насправді це розподілення цих коштів на 21 рік до 27-го року. Тепер механізми розподілення цих коштів постійно обговорюються, оскільки вони будуть змінені. Федеральний уряд Німеччини погодилися, що ми вже будемо вдосконалювати систему використання цих фондів. І в майбутньому фермер буде отримувати лише ці платежі, якщо вони будуть запроваджувати і використовувати значно вищі кліматичні стандарти з незашкодження навколишньому середовищу. І тоді вже ці платежі будуть, якщо всі невикористані платежі будуть передаватися на розвиток сільських зон. Тож ті платежі, які будуть так само отримуватися і виробниками органічного продукту, будуть впливати і на розвиток сільських зон. Це те, що може дещо змінити сцену органічного виробництва в майбутньому. Тож, якщо ми маємо мету збільшити площі органічного виробництва на 25%, це буде дійсно можливо за застосування такого підходу. Це був дуже перший приклад. Приклад другий. Німеччина як федеральна держава має 16 федеральних округів. За останні кілька років були кілька ініціатив для того, щоб запроваджувати нові ініціативи в межах окремих федеральних округів. Такі місцеві окружні референдуми. Наприклад, у Баварії 1,7% підтримали ініціативи зі збереження навколишнього середовища. Одна ініціатива, наприклад, була збільшити кількість земель під органічне виробництво до 2030 року на 30%, залежно від можливості певного федерального округу. Всі референдуми про це збільшення органічних земель були успішними. За результатами цих референдумів ці федеральні землі далі роблять певні кроки для того, щоб промотувати органічне виробництво та фермерство і досягнути цих цілей. Це означає, що дійсно навіть так само насправді впроваджуються закони на рівні федеральних земель щодо збереження додаткових земель. Третій приклад. Так само є ще питання вкорінення політичних цілей для провадження органічного фермерства в Німеччині в наступні роки і до залучення додаткових ресурсів для цього. І основна мета в тому, переконатися, що органічні продукти, вони будуть правильно показані на ринку і матимуть доступ до ринку. Отже, нам потрібно не лише більше сільськогосподарських земель, які будуть передані під органічне виробництво, але й можливість виходити на ринок для органічних продуктів, для того, щоб досягнути цієї цілі до 2030 року мати 25-30% земель під органічним виробництвом та фермерством в Німеччині і в Європі. Ми знаємо, що ринок органічних продуктів зростає дуже швидко за всі роки. Зараз вже йдеться про майже 12 мільярдів євро на рік. Для того, щоб далі стимулювати попит ще більше, цікаві політичні заходи на рівні і федеральних земель, і міст так само приймаються. Один з прикладів – це так звані моделі органічної підтримки регіону. Це встановлює зв'язок між певним регіоном та органічним виробництвом. Основна мета цього органічного регіонального режиму полягає в тому, щоб разом з усіма зацікавленими сторонами відродити вже структури, чи відродити вже існуючі ферми, чи купувати нові. Ми хочемо розширити ринковий доступ, тому що в кожному регіоні люди хочуть зробити щось корисне, вони хочуть промотувати регіональне органічне фермерство. Тож модель органічних регіонів з органічним виробництвом так само дає вам можливість втілити свою ідею. Якщо у вас є ідея, яка буде передбачати органічне виробництво, ви можете отримати підтримку федеральної земель. Декілька німецьких федеральних земель уже успішно промотують цю модель підтримку, вже, здається, десь 5-6 чи навіть 7 федеральних земель підтримують цю ідею, і вже було створено кілька таких от модельних регіонів. Це теж може бути далі запроваджено і далі використано і для інших країн. Мені здається, що, можливо, це дійсно цікавий приклад і для України, але, звичайно, це все залежить так само від різниці в законодавстві або що. Четвертий приклад. І ще один приклад політичних ініціатив для того, щоб розширити попит на органічний продукт, це так звані органічні міста в Німеччині. Ці міста так само промотують подальше виробництво і потребу, попит на органічні продукти, і так само вони допомагають створювати додаткову вартість для ланцюгів виробництва, розташованих навколо цих міст. Вони розробляють вирощують органічну їжу на власних підприємствах. Вони закуповують для своїх дітей у дитсадки та школи органічні продукти з навколишніх територій. Це дійсно допомагає збільшувати кількість органічної їжі на ринку цих міст. Так само вже кілька проєктів було запущено для органічних міст в Німеччині. Я знаю, що, власне, Бремен, Берлін, вони вже запустили такі програми. І Бремен, від якого міста я живу недалеко, вони вже хочуть, щоб в їхньому муніципальному користуванні вже використовувалися на 100% органічних продуктів. І п'ятий приклад, останній приклад, мені би хотілося його згадати, оскільки він, можливо, не настільки відомий, але він теж може використовуватися для того, щоб збільшувати кількість земель органічного виробництва. В Німеччині земля приватна, але дуже часто федеральні землі, муніципалітети чи, наприклад, релігійні спільноти, вони теж можуть бути власниками сільськогосподарської землі також. Тож тип використання і власник землі може так само розробляти певні умови оренди для цієї землі. Тож, наприклад, в деяких федеральних землях передбачається, що, наприклад, землі, які є у власності церкви, в деяких федеральних землях можуть передаватися тільки для органічного фермерства. Або, наприклад, деякі території, яких мають в муніципальній власності певні водні ресурси, вони теж можуть передаватися тільки на використання з метою органічного фермерства. Це дійсно дуже важливий момент. Тож мені би хотілося завершити саме на цьому прикладі. В цьому 5 прикладами мені хотілося показати про те, що різноманітні приклади, вони постійно зростають, вони постійно з'являються і допомагають нам збільшувати кількість земель, які будуть виділятися під органічне виробництво і органічне господарство. Це допомагає нам вибудовувати наші стратегії. Для того, щоб розробити такі ініціативи і впроваджувати їх, необхідна ініціативність багатьох активних людей і політична ініціатива. У нас зараз уже немає часу для того, щоб зосередитись на цьому прикладі, на цих прикладах більш детально. Я переконаний, що кожен із цих прикладів потребує окремої лекції, але це ми відкладемо на інший день. Дуже вам дякую за вашу увагу.
І я дуже сподіваюся, що пан Штефан скоро буде в Україні, і весь проект, ми продовжимо це спілкування, тому що це дуже дійсно корисні і цікаві приклади. Знаєте, ми в рамках нашого
Interesting and
проекту
important examples that you have voiced out. Because, you know, in the framework of our project, the Ukrainian Green Deal, we're also looking for the successful cases. You know, we have this direction that is called the farmers of the future. We are gathering different examples from all over the world, and it's something that is really needed. What we really like to see, the good successful cases from Ukraine. But I do hope that Stefan and the big project that is going to be launched very soon, they're going to help us with getting the examples from all over the world, and is going to help us to inform people of those examples and role models as well. So thank you very much for those examples. Let us now take a look at the question that we wanted to pose. You might have seen the poll raising up. I hope you had this opportunity to answer those questions, and we have had almost more than 50% of our participants answering this question, so we can show you the results already, I guess. So we have had the poll, and the question was, in what way the development of organic production and agriculture has influenced the image of Ukraine and the reputation of Ukraine. So let's have half a minute more to vote. So please make sure that you have voted to the option that you believe is the best. So it doesn't influence, it improves the image of Ukraine and reputation of Ukraine, or it influences negatively. So please take a look at the options available and make sure that you will vote as well.
таке зміцнює, да?
Okay, so it actually strengthens the authority and reputation of Ukraine. Okay, none of the people present here today believe that it influences negatively the reputation of Ukraine. Okay, good. But of course, we understand we have to follow some certain rules in order to make it. Okay, good. So we're going to start answering this question with the help of our panelists, because basically we have already started speaking about the international activities. We have Maria Makhnovets in the chat. She has provided you the information about trade and about the opportunities for the trade. So please take a look at that. She had linked you to the trade help desk. Make sure that you will check out all of these contacts. And Maria Makhnovets have told us, please use it with pleasure. But right now, I would like to ask Serhiy Halashevsky to join us with video. Serhiy, are you with us? Great, great, perfect. Good. So, Serhiy, you have seen those questions that we have had posted already about the international collaboration, support. From your point of view, from the point of view of the organ standard, the certification body, I think that you have already had this experience, and you might know what can you advise to people. What can you say about that? Well, of course. So I actually believe that Ukraine developing the organic production study is now getting the leadership position. So Ukraine has the leadership position in some notions. For example, Ukraine has been second country on the overall volume of import to the European Union. And of course, it actually strengthens the positive reputation of our country. And the organic production is the indicator for the highly developed countries. And if you even will consider the statistics of how Ukraine exports its non-organic products, top 10 countries, and where do we export our organic products? So we will see that we'll basically export into the highly developed countries. From our experience and from the experience with of the exporters that we've managed to talk to, they have outlined that during the negotiation process, especially those exporters who were only trading non-organic products, so when they have outlined that they're dealing the organic products as well, they have told us that it has caused some frustration, let us put it this way. There were some different attitudes to these companies. They even said that their non-organic products has been sold even better if the company has said that they have the range of organic products in their portfolio as well. So the overall reputation of the brand was positive. I can't say that it really changes the treatment of Ukraine. So let us put it this way, it's not the main moment to build the reputation of Ukraine, but at least it doesn't make it worse. So it's either builds up the neutral or good and or kind attitudes towards Ukraine reputation. So most of the times it's a positive element. I don't know what I can add up to that, because maybe other colleagues will add up to that as well. But that's what I wanted to say. I do believe that it actually improves the reputation of Ukraine. Thank you, Serhi. Because in the chat, Natalia Prokopchuk, I guess she has said that Miguel's presentation has shown many ideas and opportunities for Ukraine. Ukraine should just use those opportunities that have been outlined. Yes, well, but in what way Ukraine might use it right now? Maybe Maybe, do we have Konstantin Sichnoi with us? Konstantin, can we see you? Yes, good. Okay, Konstantin, hi. Hi, so what do you think of that? Konstantin, what do you think about that? What do you think about how we can use this opportunity? So Konstantin Sichnoi represents the Dance Agro. So you're the practitioners, basically, in the agricultural sector. So you can draw the conclusions from what you have heard today. You have heard some ideas about how can you use the new European Green Deal, and Miguel has told us about that. But what do you think about that? Well, I think that, there is some controversy in all of those initiatives, because we have heard that even inside of Europe, they don't have this kind of unified perspective on how it's going to be developing further on. But there is the European Green Deal, and we're really happy. We're really welcoming that. I can't speak on behalf of all of the businesses of all of Ukraine, because there's a different scale that I can say. I can't speak on behalf of the academia, because this is a different direction and different scale and a different point of view. I can only speak on my behalf, on behalf of my company, because for us, the story about the European Green Deal that happened half a year ago, there was like a breath of a fresh air, because we have felt a lot of positive ideas about that, because we have thought that we will find some additional positive moments to support the idea of organic farmship. So this is something that really now stimulates us to consider the issues of the organic CO2 in soils, about once again decreasing the overall emissions, for example, in the residue products of the husbandry or planting. So we are now developing it with our farms, organic farms in the Western Ukraine. We're collaborating with 2 universities, and we're now expecting those opportunities that have been mentioned, this Cluster 6, the Horizon, there is a lot of different nice calls from the zero pollution to the other things connected to the community development. So basically, right now, we're getting ready for the calls to be announced, because those are about these opportunities that have to be used by the Ukrainian organic farms and other actors of the markets. So we hope we will find the partners. So if we will be a part of the Horizon, we really want to be a part of Horizon project, because we understand it will be tough, but we're working on that, and we are waiting for May in order to knock on the Horizon's door. And we're going to be knocking to the main academic institutions in Europe, and maybe they will get us aboard. Just to make a very general overview, if to be more precise, then I'll need much more time to tell you about what kind of calls we'll be applying to, what kind of offers we'll be providing, what results we would like to see in the end. But those are these technical moments that I do not think are meaningful right now for this very moment of time. I think that maybe we can discuss it as in private if it will be interesting for anyone. But this is our experience. We look at this as a good opportunities. Okay, thank you, Konstantin. Do we have anyone who would like to speak on the issues of the international reputation of Ukraine in connection with the development of organic sector? Do we have someone who would like to speak up? Is there anyone who would like to add up to that?
Ну, взагалі-то у нас
Well, basically, we have planned to have Mikhailo Malkov, the representatives of the Food and Agriculture Organization of UN, who would tell us about the fraud in agriculture. But first of all, he has told it yesterday at the very same Congress. And unfortunately, he was also called out to the Cabinet of Ministry, and he has promised us. So as soon as he will have this opportunity, he will join us. But unfortunately, I guess he didn't have this opportunity. He didn't join our discussion yet. So, okay, so let us get then to the second issue that we wanted to discuss with you as well, because we have talked about the climate technologies for quite a long time already. So can you now please answer the second poll? So how does the organic production affect the environment and climate? So is it just the same whether the climate technology is equal to the organic production or no? Is this the difference between that? So I would like to ask you to answer the second poll, and then we'll get to the discussion.
Ще півхвилиночки.
So we'll just give a minute or a half for everyone to vote, and we will close the poll.
Результати на екрані.
Так, сприяє збереженням біорізноманіття.
So, okay, you say that it helps to preserve the biodiversity and reserve the greenhouse emissions. And no one has answered that it's just the same thing as the conventional agriculture. So no one has chosen that option. That's very good. And it also depends on the consciousness and awareness of the farmers. So yes, so it really helps. So, but okay, let us try to answer and cover this question. So let us ask our panelists, what do they think about the climate technologies and organic agriculture? Who would like to start your consideration on that? So, okay, so Konstantin wanted to start. Okay, let us start with the practitioner. Konstantin, please, the floor is yours. Yes, I know that Sergey here raised his hand as well. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen that. I'm sorry. But no, I think that's, I'm not going to take a lot of your time with that, but what I really wanted to mention is the essence, the idea of what organic production is. So it's just, I think that in Ukraine, mostly when people are considering the organic production, they think that, it just gives the very good products for the people to consume. So we are directing our organic production to the consumer side. But we have to identify and we have to say that there are many themes concerning the environment, biodiversity, and many other factors that include the organic production as well. That is an important moment, for example, for the consumers of Switzerland or UK. That's very important. All of these other background factors of the organic production. So there's a lot of issues concerning the organic production that are included in the essence of it as well. So, you know, we do not mention those climate technologies or the production technologies in our case. So, for example, there is a lot of methodologies and methods that you can use for the wild-grown products and berries to be gathered. So in what were the conditions under which you have to provide the gathering, where is the sources of growth, why there are green, red, or whatever, how do you process that? So there's a lot of different productional moments that are also included into the certification programs, for example. So I would like to just once again emphasize that. So the organic production includes those issues wider. It's not just about the consumer, it's about the whole process itself. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sergey. We have a lot of people who would like to speak up about this topic. We have 4 people already who are wanted to speak up. But I wanted to pose a very short question to you while we're still talking about that. But if, for example, if the organic products from Italy is going to be taken to Mongolia, so basically, do you think it influenced the climate or no? Gregory, we would like to listen to your comments. You have raised your hand.
Yes, no, I think this is a very pertinent question. And the colleague that asked that is, I think, touching the right point. Specifically discussing about emission reductions and climate technologies and climate, let's say, impact of organic farming. You are right that if we use conventional agriculture, producing techniques, this doesn't change much. I mean, fixing carbon in the soil would not change a lot. Obviously, I mean, organic farming is also about using less pesticides and less fertilizers. So there is a reduction, but there are other practices that should be added to. When looking at the panel of practices and allowed techniques for organic farming, if you wish, in addition to have, the least carbon emitting practices, you should be looking at practices such as low-till or no-till, not burning crop residues. I mean, there's a list of 26 measures that were considered by the Commission in its when it was looking into how to integrate LULUCF and agriculture in its how do you call that, in its reporting about emissions, and some practices are clearly helping, and it's possible. And it's also the alternation of some specific crops that are fixing nitrogen in the soil. So there is a list. I mean, I'll be happy to share this report if I can get my hand on it. It's somewhere there in the net. But you're right, it's not automatic. It's beneficial overall. But if we're looking at specific climate, improvement of carbon sequestration in the soil, it has to be seen under the specific lens and add to the usual organic farming practices the few additional ones that might be more beneficial for carbon preservation. That's what I wanted to share. Thanks.
Дякую дуже. Так, у нас далі Костянтин.
We have more people who wanted to speak up. We wanted Konstantin to speak up, then was Mykola, then Miguel, and then Olena Berezovska. So let us do it in that order. So please, Konstantin, the floor is yours. What I wanted to point out that, when we're talking about the climate change and when we're talking about the tools on deponing the CO2 and others, so what we have to keep in mind that we have to consider the social and economical indicators as well, because, we can discuss for example, the increase of the organic CO2 in the soil, but we will still, for example, increase the CO2 emissions based on the usage of the transportation in the agriculture, which will still have a negative effect in the end. So in the project that we have been applying, for example, so we have discussed it for the whole week with our agronomist on whether we'll be able to have this trial lots on can we do that, for example, the mini tilts with other additional cases, because and he was really thinking about it hard because it's going to be very complex. You know, in our case, in our company, we're a big company, so we can try to do these trials. The small companies, there is also an important issue of the profitability. This is the first question for many producers. So we have to find the balance between social, economical, and environmental goals of the agriculture, both organic and conventional. That's all from my side. Yes, that's what is called sustainable development, finding balance. Okay, thank you very much, Konstantin. I think we will pass the floor to Mykola Shlapak. Okay, you have raised your hand as well. Yes, thank you very much. I'll try to be very brief, but there are a couple of moments that I wanted to outline as well on this environmental benefits. And I would support to what Serhiy Holashevsky has said, because we are considering the consumer's point of view most of the time. But in my case, I do believe that the consumer's point of view is important for me when we're buying the organic products. It's not about that it is much more beneficial for the health, but it's actually the support to the producers who use the sustainable practices. Speaking on the influence on climate change, then I think that the biggest source of the criticism to the organic agriculture is the issue of the harvest. The volumes of harvest is lower than in the conventional agriculture. And that would be very interesting to listen to the points of view of the producers and the farmers themselves, because it seems that even if there is the lower level of emission in the organic fields per hectare, but because the yield is lower, the harvest levels is lower, that on the global level, it might cause additional lands to be used for agriculture, which will also lead to increase of the emissions. So I think that is a very controversial question on how the organic agriculture can influence the overall greenhouse gases emissions. And answering the question on logistics, Tamara, that you have posed, so basically, yes, logistics, it also influences the overall emissions, but I wouldn't use it as a backlash for the organic or organic agriculture, because this is a traditional picture and traditional template for current trade, because, you know, conventional products are being taken thousands of kilometers away from the source. So we should not divide it in some specific moment. But of course, we understand that using the organic products will have the better impact to the climates overall. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mykola. Miguel, we would like to listen to you now.
Thank you. I just wanted to build on this point because it's a complex discussion. I agree with Mykola. He puts this discussion about the yield gap, how it's called in the scientific community. But I wanted to mention that I'm also member of the steering committee of the TP Organics, which is the technological platform of organics and agroecology. And from that point of view, we group stakeholders related to organic and agroecology research in Europe. And from this point of view, I have to mention that it's a complex, the comparison between organic and conventional is very complex, because you have a huge diversity of farming methods, and you can have from super intensive organic certified products to very traditional and mixed ways of production. So I think that's why it provokes some difficulties. But if you compare a similar system, like a super intensive system in organic with another in conventional, I think you will find a lot of positive externalities, and including the climate impact. And I think this is something that's clear. You have to take into account that the scientific community globally is shifting the paradigm, because nowadays, for example, we have this pesticide-free zero pesticide initiative from the major agricultural universities of Europe, who are pledging to phase out pesticides and to do agriculture without pesticides. This is a step that was not unmanageable a few years ago. I think the whole paradigm of an agricultural production is shifting, and the position of organic agriculture is well placed. It's not the only system. I think we have to think that organic agriculture is the only legally recognized, and this provides some good assets. For example, the connection with the consumer and the price premium and the certainty of the practices. But of course, we consider that organic is just the first step. I think was Constantine. You also need to take the social, and the consumers are every day demanding more information, more knowledge about how the produce is food. So I think to going in organic is a first step of a longer process. Just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Дякую. Дуже класно. Пані Олено.
Ideas. Thank you. Olana, you wanted to add something too. Yes, I was listening to this discussion with great interest, and I do believe that discussion has lots of continuation going on. What I wanted to comment was about the need to continue this discussion in combining the work of Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Economics, and Ministry of Environment. And that is very important. It is very important because right now we have the pass of for Ukraine, for our second input for the Paris Agreement, and the economical part of it has not been considered that. And I wanted to mention that, and I wanted to mention that about the Ukrainian Green Deal and economical component to that. How will we get money for all of those changes and adaptations? Where we will get this money? So it is important to consider the position of the businesses, how they see, well, they will find the money to implement all of these technologies that will be mandatory for Ukraine soon. And we can continue this topic, of course, but I do believe that whatever we are dealing with, whatever we're considering, promoting the organic consumption, or we need a lot of money to do that, and it's not going to be covered by businesses only, and or switch to the organic production, or massive or scaling switch to organic production. It takes a lot of money, and not only from the organic businesses. And I would like to offer to have a systematic methodological approach to this topic, and not only on behalf of the Ministry of Environmental Protection, but also from the Ministry of Agriculture Policies that positions itself as an already great actor to the market, and they have already the declaration on the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Economy, because they combine everything: economy, agriculture, and trade. Thank you, Olana. I think we need the Ministry of Education just to help us to promote the knowledge of what does it mean. Well, yeah, but I do believe that, we don't. One of the phrases in my we can't resolve the issues, one on one or privately. We're speaking about the very big responsibility. We're speaking about the very huge amounts of money that will be needed. We need to get the roundtables. We need to consider the position of businesses first of all in making this switch, because all of the programs, all of the ideas, they will be drawn to businesses that will have to implement it, or they will have to pay the fines unless they will do something. And this is something that we have to consider. Yes, thank you, Olana. Mykola, you would like to add something as well? Yes, yeah, if I may. It was just one additional comment that I have come up with when I was listening to Miguel's remarks and Konstantin's remarks, understanding that there's many different practices and many different conditions that have to be considered. What I do believe, what is important for the party says, would be important to understand what is the overall level of the emissions this is caused by their activities. They are specifically caused by their activities on their land bank from different sources, and to follow these dynamics. And these issues are going to be more and more important, and they're going to gain more weight in providing the financial resources and in overall positioning to the market. And the second important comment for me for this, once again, the input to the Paris Agreement. I believe that it is important to understand that the Paris Agreement was a certain compromise, between the strictness of the requirements that have been set out into the Paris Agreement and getting more countries engaged. And as far there was no opportunity to engage all of the countries into the Paris Agreement, so they didn't have to the Kyoto Protocol, so that was quite strict. So that is why the Paris Agreement has come up to this voluntary input. So it will not have the direct impact for businesses or the countries if we're speaking about the clear emissions level. And for example, it doesn't bring up the requirement to buy additional volumes if you overcome your input. So it is just a declaration of the intent for the country to keep on moving into some directions. And based on that, it is very important for the businesses. It's not that much about the number that has been set out into the Paris Agreement and for our country obligations, but the political tools and the policies tool that will be developed to support our input to the Paris Agreement, that they will be able to provide the benefits for businesses, for the organic businesses as well. So we have to consider that. We have to consider that as additional opportunities. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mikola. Olena, you would like to have another moment? Yes, just to continue that, thank you very much for your comment, Mikola. But the products like that and the overall state positions, they also provide certain obligations to us, liabilities. And even for the second input, we have the number more than 6 billion that have to be provided by businesses and states in order to implement the goals. And the question is not that much about this amount of money and that input, but it's about different things. When we all together are going to be developing the roadmap on Ukrainian Green Deal, what we have to consider is what going to be the sources for this money? How can we get this money, and how will we get this money that will be needed for us to adapt? Okay, thank you very much, Olena. I think that we will now stop this topic a little bit because, we can discuss the Paris Agreement and Ukrainian liabilities under that, and can discuss it for ages. Let us switch back to another issue that we wanted to identify through our discussion. Take a look at the poll 3. So, we have organic farming, we have organic production in the village. And what does the village get out of it?
Опитування запущено.
So you see the poll, so please vote.
Ще 10 секунд.
10 seconds more.
Дякуємо.
О, більшість каже,
That's interesting that most of you have said that it actually supports the social and economic development of the village. Let us talk about that. Can you give us the very precise example of how the organic farm can improve and support the social and economic development of the village? That's very good to see this kind of good results, but maybe someone would like to share their experience. Konstantin would like to share. Okay, great.
Знову ж таки, на прикладі нашої
Well,
діяльності.
okay, just to give you an example from our activities, and in our activities, I mean the Vinnytsia region, because basically we have smaller organic farms that started to appear around 3 or 4 years ago, and most of those farms have been connected to berries, which is quite clear as well. So, because the farmers because most of that, so we're not thinking about the pesticides, we're not thinking about anything else. People are mostly starting to think about only the income of their families. That is something that we just have to face. It's a fact. But our small farms that has been created for 3 or 4 years already, that have been certified by the organic standards, I can already say that they have certain influence on the communities around, because we see how from those villages, from those amalgamated territorial communities, we see how the people that are asking us that they would like to get to that way of the organic organic farming as well. So the people that are not the authorities of the amalgamated communities, they're not looking at you with their surprised eyes and saying like, what is the green economy about? So there is a shift, there is a transition towards the opinions about the organic and green farming. Last year, we had the regional foundation, the regional fund that given the finances to create the organic berry farm based on the municipal farm of the region. So it has 1.4 hectares of raspberries there, and the journalists came to see that. So it was quite a loud story. They haven't applied for certification yet, but we do hope that it will be that will happen soon. They will apply for certification. The head of this amalgamated community, he said, I see that it's okay that it will be 5 or 6 hectares covered with berries. I see, for example, there are some land plots owned by the veterans of Ukrainian ATO, so they're basically are also interested in joining the organic farming. So yes, that's something that is being developed, but there are certain changes happening. You know, we can see that on the level of the region, in the governmental vertical as well. If, for example, before that, the authorities haven't provided no budget for that, then right now we see that it's being taken from top to the bottom to the level of the amalgamated communities. I was there, and my colleague Vitaly Shmurak, who's also famous in organic production in the region, we have spoken about broadening the opportunities for the amalgamated communities in organic directions, not only speaking about the berry gathering, for example, but growing horticulture as well. So there are some changes that happening, but we see that we can just see that clearer when we're working in the field. So what will happen next, we will just see. Like, we'll need, I do believe we'll need around like 4 or 5 more years to see what is going to be the development or the sustainability of those green islands in the territorial communities. Thank you, Konstantin. And just to follow up, you've just said that the local farmers, they're mostly taken care of, but they mostly care about their income and they do not think about nitrates or pesticides. But okay, but if you will not be able to use the water for your businesses because the water is going to be polluted, what should you do then? Well, you know, step one, okay, just let us do it this well. In Rivne region, I'm really hard for me to say that we are really lucky. We have water. Yes, like I'm not about the water. I'm just about how this small organic farming movement has started. It started with a person who has been a fan of this organic measures for 5 years. The issue was that it should have been just taken to the different standard. It just there was the need for the person to make everything abiding to the law. So, of course, if the waters are going to be polluted, and by the way, that is a very big emphasis for the Clean Baltics Coalition, for example, that are promoting the ideas with the pollution of the waters and water basins. But basically, the farmers are going to react to that as well, yes, but the farmers are not this pushing power and not those driving engines that will go to the authorities and they will ask for this legislation change in soil management, for example. So yes, the farmers will have to deal with the outcomes of the problems and they will have to respond to that, but they are not the source of resolution to the problem, unfortunately. Okay, good. So we have a comment from Miguel. So please, Miguel.
Just to build on this topic from the experience of Europe, first, I would like to say that the price premium and to increase the profitability of farms is an absolute condition to have people in the rural areas. So you need decent conditions and you need fair retribution for farmers. This is a key point to maintain population in rural areas. And I think organic farming so far, from the empirical point of view, is improving the income of farms. This is a key point. But I wanted to mention also that there are in parallel several initiatives to increase the impact of organic agriculture and other practices in the rural areas. And for example, I wanted to mention the community support agriculture biodistricts that are mentioned in the organic action plan. There are in Italy a lot of experience of local regions specializing and facilitating the transition to organic through the local authorities and the involvement of regional and local authorities. This is key. There are also experience related to the Milan Pact of urban food policies, where cities are also getting engaged in the discussion about the transition and the sustainability of the food they consume. So there are many lines of actions in this side, and I think it's very important that we involve farmers with local authorities. I think it has been mentioned by the example of Constantine, and I think this is really the way to go. There are a lot of experience and different ways to achieve that at the moment. And I think it's very good. It will provide opportunities also for Ukraine, I'm certain. Thank you.
Дякую, Мігель.
Thank you, Miguel. Do we have anyone who would also like to comment on this complex issue? Because I think we have had a very interesting experience from Germany of how can the communities be supported and how the ideas of the organic farmships can be supported. You know, we are recording all of our discussions right now, so I think that we're going to listen to this topic closely in the following days, and we know that those measures have to be promoted in Ukraine, but when are they going to be used, how it's going to be used, is something that also depends on our actions as well. And I see that Stefan has also raised his hand, so please.
Thank you very much. I think it's such a big question, so it's it's an only way to discuss about it and to explain how it could work. I don't want to say much about it, but I think very meaningful for this question, for this realization of this question, is the people. I think I explained before, and all the people before me, the speaker said, you have to make decisions from the politicians, that's right, and we are proud in Germany and in Europe that we get now a new step. I think 20, 30 years ago, people laugh about organic farmers or people who are engaged in this sector. And now I think it changed really. And this goal for 25% organic farming, was unbelievable 20, 30 years ago. But now it could be realistic for next years. And that's the reason is that the atmosphere changed. So people are very sensitive about environment, not the people, but many people about it. And it's the same, this question you discuss here, I think very important is to get money for it, to make impulses. And Elena said it before, I think it would be good to discuss it every time, further with the ministry, how it go forward, where we get money for it, where are the political decisions. But I think the main point is that the people are busy in the sector, the people in the regions, overall small parts, like Konstantin said, you have to be people there, and they start with the idea in the regions. And it's very, very important. Otherwise, it don't live so good. But I'm convinced that all over Ukraine there are people who are working on this, and it will grow and grow and grow. And then I think the region are very important for Ukraine for this success of or support of organic farming all over Ukraine. That's I only want to say, not more.
Дякую.
Thank you. Thank you. We see that Serhi has also a couple of moments he wanted to add up as well. Well, yes, I'm also sure that the producers for the organic products, they can tell you a lot about what are their relationship with the locality, with the local authorities. What I wanted to add up from what we observe, because first of all, the organic production really requires a little bit more engagement of the human labor than the conventional production. It's quite clear that when you're doing the organic farm, you have more jobs available. Then the operators of the organic sectors, there are usually small, mediums, but let's say not very large enterprises. So they are very targeted and very anchored to the specific locations. We don't have the big agricultural holdings that deal with organic farmship and organic agriculture. So there is a lot of money that you have to invest into infrastructure. So another moment is like, for example, if you work with the organic planting, then you're also stimulating to do the cattle breeding or husbandry as well, because most of the organic producers and organic producers and organic farmers, they consider switching to the next stage of the organic production, which also gives a lot of perspective to engage more people, more resources on the local level, which also encourages the further on development of the communities. Thank you, Serhi. I think that we now can get to the next topic, the final topic for our discussion today, on how the organic production influences our customers, our consumers. We didn't build up a poll about it. We didn't offer the question about it, but there's a question in chat. A lot of our citizens believe that organic products are only being produced to export or only for the wealthy people. What are the steps possible in Ukraine in order to turn the organic products to the products for everybody? Who can answer that? Okay, Kostya would like to start. Yes, please, Kostya. Well, I have a clear position. That's what we really lack. We really lack the expert support from the Ministry of Healthcare. Because, we are working with Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Economy, environmental ministries, but unfortunately, we do not have a lot of information available about the benefits of organic products. What do we have now is basically everything that has been done by the Organic Ukraine or by the Federation of Organic Movements, their publications. Unfortunately, we only have this positive research and that's only state the benefits from the dairy products or the meat products, the organic dairy, organic meat products. We don't have the background to stand on. Maybe our Ministry of Healthcare, maybe they understand that there's still nothing to support. So maybe that's the reason for this silence. You cannot live with only the bright commercials and advertisement. So we have to understand that there has to be a different factor to choose the organic products. Why the young mothers are choosing, for example, organic products? Well, because of fear. Because of fear, they're afraid of their health and the health of their children. Like, for example, in Rivne, we try to provide organic products to the two kindergartens. We had these meetings with the mothers of the kids that are visiting these kindergartens, and we tried to find their motivation, but we didn't have this argumentative and reasonable information. What is the benefit of organic products? We need to have a respectable body, the body with good authority that will be heard, people responsible for diets and nutrition, the professionals. We need a bit of professional support standing from our experience that we already had. Yes, thank you, Konstantin. What I also have thought while I was listening to you, maybe we should also consider the pricing mechanisms. For example, if we will include the bad impact for health, if we will then attribute it to the price, maybe the organic products will be even cheaper than the conventional products. But okay, Stefan would like to say something. I will then pass the floor to Konstantin. Stefan?
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, only some words to it. I think it's an important question. I think it's very important that organic food will not be only for the rich people and will not get an image for rich people. I think from the beginning on, it would be good that organic products a little bit higher from the price. It's normal, it's necessary, but not too much. And if they get a normal image, I think that's a good possibility to bring it in a brighter market. I remember I think 2011, I was the first time in Moscow, and they also worked there on the law for organic farming. And there was 2-3 special shops for organic farming. And I was really astonished. It was really organic only for rich people. They were 3 times, 4 times more expensive than in Germany. So it's not possible for the common people. And I saw last year when I traveled through, 2 years ago in Ukrainian Chernovitz, I was in a shop. They sold organic milk. I saw there the first organic milk in Ukraine. And the price was okay. So I think everyone who has a little bit more money can buy it. And I mean, with the image, it's very important because I know it 30 years ago, and now it's the same. If you want to buy organic, you will do it. So students who have not so much money, they're convinced from it and they buy it. If it's a little bit cheaper, but it's important is the impact, is the possibility that they think it's good for me. And they do it if they buy it for a little bit more price than conventional, but they do it. And if you come to, I think many people were in Germany, if you go to the supermarket, as Tamara said before, sometimes the product of organic cheaper than conventional, sometimes. Yeah. But that must be not. I think the farmers must they must earn money from this product. But yeah, this was a little bit impulse from me. I only want to say, be careful on the beginning and be careful with the image. It must be from the beginning and an image of this is there are good products and the products for all, that not only for the rich people in the towns. Thank you.
Дякую, дякую. Пан Мігель хоче щось сказати, да? Прошу, Мігель.
Yeah, quite quickly, I share in the chat this publication of TP Organic where we collect some scientific evidence, and there are a small chapter on health issues and organic consumption. It's a very complicated field because normally health consumption of organic products is related with the more healthy habits. Normally the people do sports, so the comparison is not straightforward, and from the scientific point of view, it's quite difficult to have this body of literature. But anyway, there are specific conclusions like pesticides, presence of cadmium and nitrates are lower in organic products. So I think this is a clear message that can be sent. But one point I think we need to take into account is, for example, the impact on water. The scientific consensus is organic agriculture is much better for water. And I think if you think the money we need to invest for cleaning the water and treat all waters of our countries to provide good condition water for drinking and these kind of things, there will place a very important role for organic agriculture. I agree that, for example, the European Commission is DG Sante, the General Director of Health and Consumers, who is leading this farm to fork strategy. So I think the involvement of the health authorities is crucial, and I agree with Konstantin with that. And I just wanted to mention that the consumers are every day more aware of the different of the products. So I think to explore and to increase the performance of organic agriculture in that side is crucial. Thank you.
Дякую. Дякую.
Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. And I think we had some more comments about this issue. Okay, no more comments. Okay, then I would like to draw your attention to the chat for a second, because I see that Olana Berezovska has said that it would be good if we would put all of the researches, that we would share it in one place. I think that we'll be able to do that because we're recording not only the videos, but also recording the chat. So we will be able to post it all together. But I would like to remind our participants that you can pose your questions in the chat, even if we will not have the time to cover those questions, or if we will not be able to cover that, we will record those questions and we will definitely respond to all of those questions and reply to all of those questions after the meetings, and will definitely reflect on your questions. I know that there's a lot of very complex issues that we raised up today, because all of our speakers have said that every topic of discussion requires a separate day of discussion, a separate lecture. That's true, because all of these topics are very serious and very challenging, and I hope we'll be able to do that all together, all of us. And I'm sure that we are going to be continuing talking about the collaboration between the ministries that's have the separate responsibility for different components making up the agriculture. But I would like to ask our panelists, do you have any questions or comments that you would like to share with us? Is there something that you still would like to say? We still have some time left. Yes, Konstantin, please. Well, I have a question to Miguel, because once again, you've mentioned the Horizon. I've mentioned the Horizon program. So in your opinion, how do you see, maybe not, how do you see Ukrainian participation in the Horizon project? Maybe not as the coordinators of the project, but how do you believe that Ukrainian academic institutions, they also be a part of the overall academical development in Europe? So what are our opportunities to participate in Horizon? Overall, like the very overall, very general question, not about some specific projects, but overall, how would you evaluate, how would you rate the opportunities for Ukraine to participate?
Okay, if I may answer. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the question. I think Ukraine have a partnership and science cooperation with the EU. I think it's a good opportunity, because if Ukraine keep exploring the organic component, I think this will, with this 30% I have mentioned, this will provide a lot of opportunities. But keep in mind that there are also, this 30% is only for the compromising the organic action plan. There are also other opportunities exploring. For example, in Horizon Europe, there will be a partnership on Horizon on agroecology and living labs, explore the dimension of living labs and including several different actors in the agroecological transition. This may provide additional opportunities. I think the opportunities are there. Of course, Horizon Europe is a quite competitive context, because all the European institutions and education centers and research centers are competing for each one of those goals. But the goals are there. I think for actors trying to shift these transitions, they might be opportunities, and just to engage with other partners of Europe, I think it could be a good opportunity. I think the opportunities are there, but of course, it's topic by topic. You need to get in contact and to know the specific lead authors, and in order to be competitive. It's not only to have an interesting experience to share, it's also to manage to be part of this network where the European scientists compete. I think Ukrainian institution might have a good position to explore interesting experience and experiments and projects, but of course it needs to be engaged with other European partners. I hope I answered. Thank you.
Ну, мені здається, що сьогоднішня
Well, I think that our today's meeting is also going to help us a little bit to think about the European partners and to look for the European partners. By the way, we've had the representatives for the delegation of the European Union and the Renaissance Foundations. Maybe they will advise something as well. We have the representatives of the big projects, and that have been working with the European Union financial support, and I am sure that basically everything is possible. And we see Mykola Shlepak also would like to add something, please. Well, yes, just speaking on the Horizons program, because I have just participating in the discussion with the Ministry of Education about this program, and what we are currently doing, what they're currently doing for Ukraine to become the associated members for the Horizon Europe program. And I do believe that there is a huge potential for us to be the partners of that program as well. But I would like to get back to the question that has been raised by Natalia in the chat on the overall collaboration between the Ministry of Region, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Agriculture Policies, and Ministry of Environment, which has been also noted down by Olana in her comments. I do believe that this issue of collaboration between the ministries is very important, because when we're speaking about the influence of the agriculture and the climate impact, and when these responsibility spheres are being divided between different governmental bodies, it is important to find a very good coordination mechanisms. We had this experience of amalgamating the ministries, which was not the good experience. It is really hard to combine and unite this really different ministries. And what I really like is the example of the UK, when they have the so-called climate change committee that is basically this, his responsibility is being based in legislation, but this is the independent body that also has the advisory functions and the coordination functions between the different governmental bodies and institutions that are connected to the climate issues. Thank you. Thank you, Mykola. Thank you for this remark. You know, we have another question in the chat from what I understand. So there is a question to our international guests. How is the control implemented for when the non-organic products are being sold under the organic labeling? So especially through the internet, are you doing that under the planned and scheduled inspections, or the controlling bodies are monitoring the sales of this kind of fraudulent products outside of the scheduled inspections? Who can cover this question? So maybe we will leave this question right now in written, and we will then address it to Mr. Mikhailo Malkov, because this is basically his topic of. Okay, so I think we will just leave it to Mikhailo, because this is his expertise fully. Okay, I hope that we've managed to cover many different topics. I hope that this conversation was interesting for you as well. We're almost out of time, but I just wanted to draw some conclusions right now. And I would like to ask each and every one of you to give a very brief output of our today's conversation. What was the main conclusions for you or after this conversation? Maybe 3 or 4 words about what was the most important for you, whatever, like what are the actions to be needed that are needed to be taken, whatever is the output for you for our today's discussional platform. Yes, Konstantin would like to start. Yes, please. You know, I feel that, you know, we won't be alone in that, because according to the scientific data, Ukrainian land can keep around like 30% of the CO2. Well, the science says it, and the research has shown it. So I do believe that maybe we can become this bank that will guarantee quite serious, that will grant quite serious climate opportunities for the continent as well. But I do believe that it is very important for collaborating with us. So I once again would like to, I don't know, give a call to our international colleagues. It is important for us to know that we will not be left alone, because we can do a lot. We are started to getting engaged into this topic, and we're going to be developing it, but we need some support. Okay, thank you, Konstantin. Who else would like to speak out? What were the main conclusions for you that you would like to voice out?
Пане Микола.
Yes, Mykola, please. Well, first of all, I really would like to thank for the invitation. It was very interesting for me to be the part of this discussion and to present our research, the TNA research. I think the main conclusion for me is that in Ukraine, we have built already a very good ecosystems of the organic farmers and organic producers. It was really important for me to understand that actually the organic farming and the climate change are important issues that are now in the agenda of Ukrainian producers and the Ukrainian market actors. There is the understand of the urgency and importance of these questions. And of course, I'll be really happy to receive any feedback from your side and for further collaboration that will help us to develop development of the organic farmship on the state level. Thank you, Mikola. Miguel?
I wanted to add that I'm also very thankful for being part of this very interesting panel. I think I'm happy to contribute to these discussions, and I strongly believe that Ukraine will have an important role in the future development of organic, also in relation with Europe. So wanted to thank you, and also to ask everyone that if we want to exchange, we are completely open to further cooperation. So thank you very much. Yes, on the conclusions, I would like to say that I believe that the European Union is taking a very ambitious step for the organic sector with this action plan, but also with the 25%. So the European Union is moving towards to take the lead in the development of the organic sector worldwide. It is stated from the scientific point of view that conventional farming cannot maintain as it is, because natural resources are deploying and will be depleted. So I think we need to change and organize the transition of our agriculture. Organic agriculture has shown that they can provide premiums to farmers, can attract private actors. So I think I think there are scientific consensus on that, and I'm happy that the investments of the European Union might have spillover effects. I just wanted to call the attention that I'm coming from a country, from Spain, which was traditionally being an only exporting country to basically to Germany and to other northern countries of the EU. We have a similar situation, as we can see, maybe to Ukraine at the moment, more oriented to export because the farmers identify the best opportunities there. But after several years, you have the domestic consumption has risen a lot in Spain. And I think it's an important signal that you don't stay in the same situation, but by growing the number of organic farmers, you increase the availability of organic produce, you increase the interest of several actors of the value chain in commercializing at local level, and the situation changed. So I'm happy to see that the Ukraine is in the first steps, but of course with the agricultural importance that Ukraine have, I strongly believe that the future for the organic sector is blooming and will bloom in the coming years. Thank you.
Дякую дуже.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being that optimistic. We had Katerina raising her hand as well. Yes, thank you very much. Unfortunately, because of, that I was trying to work as a technical coordinator as well, and I didn't manage to be an active participant for the discussion. But I really would like to say a couple of words in the end, because I do believe that this is the very first discussion that we're having in these issues, but not the last one, because there are many good questions from the producers, and there are many important notes from the different stakeholders of the organic sector in Ukraine. Unfortunately, we were not able to cover all of that in our discussion today, but there are important things that are really important for our producers. So they're worried on how the increase of the areas of the organic lands, how will it influence the overall the capacities of Ukraine to be one of the main exporter to Ukraine, to European Union. So there are issues that have been very sensitive and important for our producers as well, whether we'll be able to be competitive when there will be more areas covered by the organic production. Yes, we are second right now, but whether we'll be able to preserve, to keep this position, how much time we'll be able to keep this position with us. Another issue that is also very sensitive for our producers is that we are the leaders on the volumes of the products in quantity. But Ukraine, unfortunately, is not the leader in worth, because mostly what we are exporting, the products, they're just the raw product, the raw commodities that we're exporting. So how the position of shortening the supply chains will influence the Ukrainian products as well, and whether we'll have the chances to export the processed products to the European Union. And I do understand that those are the questions for our further discussions. That's a lot of things that we have to cover further on, and we're really grateful to all of the speakers who have been here with us today for your impact. Thank you, Katarina. And Stefan, you.
Yes, thank you very much to be part of this intensive discussion. It was really fun to discuss and to hear all the impulses here from the speakers. I think this is, again, a next step, a very good next step in explore Ukrainian organic. I think you asked me conclusions, solutions from this discussion. I think, as I said yesterday, there are two steps for Ukraine to support organic farming and that organic land will grow in Ukraine. First is export. I think it works. And maybe it grows in the next years because also the market in Europe and in America and USA grows. But the second, I think, is very important, and also for our discussion and also discussion what it's possible for the development of the regions. Its first step, I think it's very necessary, is to implement the organic law of Ukraine. And if you have this law, then you have this fantastic logo, and you go your own way here in Ukraine and support the local markets with organic products. And then I think it will be also interesting and I think necessary to make a roadmap for the next years. Maybe the roadmap in the business where we will go on, and also a roadmap together from the ministry and the business. I heard that some weeks ago the parliament decided we have to go 3% of all agricultural land will be organic in some years. It's sounds not much, but I think it's much. It will be more than 1.2 million hectares. So it's much more than now. I think 700,000 hectares. And as we discuss it today, I think it needs political decisions. They make a political decision to make 3% in I think 5 years or 6 years. But maybe with this roadmap, as Olena explained, it's a good solution to say in 2 years we give money for this support. As we explained here a little bit, as Miguel explained it, we made it in Europe. I explained it a little bit. There are so many possibilities to go forward, but to make really a roadmap, what we will do with support to go forward. But I think also, like Olena said, without support without money, you can go forward, but it will go much, much faster than without money from the government or from the country. That's my point of view for the moment and from this discussion. And thank you very much again for it.
Добре. Дякую, пане Штефан.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you very much. And I would like to once again thank all of the participants of our today's meetings. I think that it's high time for us to wrap up the meeting and everything that has been written in the chats. Yes, there are some offers coming up in the chat. We will definitely consider that. We will copy all of the offers and questions in the chat. If we were not able to cover that, we are going to be sending you the answers later on in writing. I really would like to thank our technical support for today's, and I would like to thank our interpreter. So thank you very much, and we're letting our interpreter go because they need to get to the next session straight away. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this conversation. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.